Take your event to the next level with Crossroads TV. Professional audio and video production, multi-camera live streaming, audio system for your panels and entertainment, plus stunning video screen production on LED walls. High quality, seamless production, tailored to your needs. Let us bring your vision to life. Contact us today.
Sorry. We'll get started with the Waterville Planning Board meeting. We will begin with approval of minutes for the January 28th meeting. Do you have a motion to approve?
Make the motion to approve.
A second? Scott seconded.
Who made the motion?
Tom.
Thank you.
And then Scott. All those in favor? Great. Item number 2, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Do any planning board members have conflicts that they wish to disclose tonight? You could put on your little, that's okay.
I believe there's an item before us tonight dealing with a business up on College Avenue, Pro Seal.
Mm-hmm.
My microphone is
Yeah.
on.
Yep. It needs to get closer, I guess.
Okay.
There we go. All right.
Am I correct? Is there an item on the agenda?
Pro Seal? Yep.
Okay, I do have a conflict. I've used that company substantially in the past, and my law office represents them at this point.
Okay. Any other conflicts? Okay, hearing none. Item number 3, Waterville Real Estate LLC is requesting final plan review for the construction of third apartment at 959 West River Road. Yep.
Thank you. I'm going to pull up the PDF right here for us. Is that viewable?
Yep.
Okay. Oh,
Nope.
maybe too much.
Then it
Sorry.
really zoomed.
Well, my name's Harry Kajoyan. I'm with Waterville Real Estate. We also own the building at 977 West River Road. About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, we bought the house at 959 West River Road. We converted the main house into a two-family. What I'm asking today is to have an apartment above the garage. When I do travel here, I tend to stay, and I was hoping to have a place to hang my hat during my visits up to Waterville. I enjoy staying at the hotels, but it would be nice to stay at an apartment where I can keep my clothing or what have you. So I'm here for a final plan review for that purpose, for the apartment above the garage.
Sounds good. Any comments from the board? Hearing none. I believe this is we've already reviewed this for the zoning change, right? Yep. Do you have one of these, Harry?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we just go through the different numbers and you tell me true or false.
Yes.
So the name of the project is 959 West River Road, 3rd unit. Name of site plan applicant, Harry Kajoyan. Address of property, 959 West River Road. Item number 1, the development will not result in undue water or air pollution.
True.
Item number 2, sufficient water available for the reasonable foreseeable needs.
True.
Item number 3, will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in the capacity of land to hold water.
True.
Good. Item number 4, the development will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion.
True.
Number 5, development will provide for adequate solid waste disposal.
True.
Number 6, the development will not cause an unreasonable burden of the municipality to dispose of sewage.
True.
Item number 7, the development will not have undue adverse effect on scenic or natural beauty of the area.
True.
Item number 8, the development is in conformance with zoning.
True.
Item number 9, the developer has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above stated standards.
True.
And then the only conditions were from the fire department for demolition renovation. Any changes to the project are not permitted shall be required updating the drawing. Have you had a chance to review those?
Yes.
Okay. And the water condition if the lot is to be split in the future.
Yes. No, I'm aware of that.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Any comments from anybody in the public? Okay, hearing none. I'll entertain a motion to accept the findings and facts.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Do we need to sign plans or anything?
Sign your plans. The board needs to sign your plans.
Do you want to quickly do it right now?
Hopefully then we don't have to
Yeah.
It's
You don't want. Item number 4, ProSeal is requesting an informal pre-application review for the construction of a 16,000 square foot commercial storage facility. Is there anybody here? Great.
Hi.
Hi.
I'll open my plan as well. And really, I think the sheet we want is probably here. Is that big enough? Yeah. There we go. My name's Scott Mellon. I represent Wentworth Partners and Associates. I'm a draftsman there. This is, I guess, the pre-site plan is what I'm here for, the pre-site plan approval. And our client ProSeal is looking to add a 80 by 200 metal storage building in the back of their existing lot. And again, this is the preliminary site plan. I've tried to show, 20-foot setbacks on the sides and back, and obviously well more than 30 feet in the front. Existing structure, we have some new pavement and really some minor grades. It's almost a flat surface out there that they want to put the building. So I don't do this every day. The engineer he's been sick with cancer. He's just getting back, so he'll be able to answer your questions moving forward. But in the interest of keeping the project moving along, I'm here to try to help out.
Great. Any questions from members of the board? Dave, you have something?
Scott, is the proposed access, is that the brown strip leading up to the building?
That's existing, like dirt and gravel. This, I can't read it from here. I can't recall the name of the road. But there's a street here. And actually, in developing or looking at this property, this is really, it's all dirt and gravel and really banged up. And I think the owners have proposed to possibly help improve this area a little bit as well during the process of developing the building. In addition to that, too, I didn't mention, there is a residence here, and I tried to follow your ordinances and stuff, so we've put a buffer of trees in here, and then I also have a privacy fence, in the front area of the building here to try to hide that.
The foundation, does that, the soil, does that need to be improved at all with compacted gravel or anything, or is it?
It will be, but we're proposing a 5-foot ICF frost wall and then a concrete slab. So of course, under the slab, we will put all those aggregates in there. Yes, sir.
Okay. Is there any water or sewer access?
There's no plan initially, but yes, we will want to put the infrastructure in there. I haven't met with the Water District yet, but that is definitely in the plans. And Ann actually provided us a letter from the fire department already for this project as well. So.
Excellent. Okay. All right.
Ann, is this commercial A, or I can't open up
I think it's
the plan
commercial
for
C.
C? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. I have that in the lower corner here.
Oh, yep.
And I got this from the map online, the Waterville.
Yep. Any other questions?
What's your timeline for coming back with
We'd like to accelerate this as fast as possible.
construction possibly this year?
Oh,
Or-
we'd
yeah,
like to start
okay.
digging tomorrow if we
Okay.
could. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Great. Do we know when the next meeting is, Ann, if he wanted to come back?
Will you be ready?
I can submit a 95% package tomorrow morning.
Well, we have 14-day notification.
Yep.
So, March.
I've got my abutters list already and ready to go, so.
Yeah, so the next regularly scheduled meeting would be the 25th, but
Oh.
we can't make the 14-day
Okay.
notice for that. So the one after that would be April 8th,
Okay.
but if we have a quorum. Do you board members know if you're available for it?
I'm available. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Does anybody else know if you're available on April 8th?
I'll be here.
Scott and Tom?
Yep, I should be fine.
Checking right now, I think.
We have to have 5.
Yep, I'm available.
So I have 4 at this point. Sam, you don't?
Oh, he said yeah.
You did? Okay, then we do have a quorum for April 8th.
So I'm sure we'll be in touch before then.
Very good.
Yeah, thank you. You folks all set with me?
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, item number 5, Mammy's Dreams LLC is requesting final plan review for 12 two-story townhouse apartments to be considered on Evergreen Drive. Hi, Jeff.
Good evening, everyone. Jeff Allen from A.E. Hodgson Engineers, and get my plans up. There, I think back in January, the last meeting we had, we went through this. This is Evergreen Drive, right along the side here, which is, and some additional condominiums over here. And I think at the last meeting I misspoke and said these were going to be apartments. I was corrected by the owner the next morning that these are indeed condos. And so since then, we've been working on this, and we've received comments from the water department, the sewer department, from the city engineer, and the fire department, who are set with the plan essentially as it is now. They don't have no changes that they suggested. We just heard this afternoon from the city engineer that he wants some sort of a bond or something set aside for potential road repair due to the number of trucks that'll be moving material off the site. And I did have a chance to speak with my clients this morning, and they're fine with that as well. So I can go through the project description again if you want, or I think the narrative that you introduced it with is pretty much the.
Can you go over any changes that you made since the?
Sure. The most significant change we made was as a result of a discussion with the fire department. They wanted to be able to drive up onto the site, but they have a limit as to how far they want to go, because then they have to back out. And so as a result of that, we moved the buildings about 20 feet closer to the road. They're still meeting the 20-foot setback that is required in the residential B zone. But since then, I've spoken with the deputy fire chief who's doing the reviews now, and he is fine with that. I think we have some comments in the application that reflect that. But that's been the biggest change. We have done some minor grading around the site. There's another engineer that was looked at the plans and found some errors, and so I appreciate his input. And as a result of that, we've made some changes to provide better drainage around the site. Did a stormwater analysis, and as a result of the new development going on here, I compared what was there now and what's going to happen in the future, and there's a small increase in flow of about less than a cubic foot per second. That I've discussed with the city engineer, and in his letter today, he commented that the regrading that we're proposing to do in the ditch should be able to easily accommodate that. Right now, the ditch is very shallow. It's in one spot, maybe a foot deep. And so all the water coming down on that hillside gets dumped out onto Evergreen Drive. Now, I went up and took a look at it Thursday morning after we'd had some rain Wednesday night. It was also 50 degrees and a bunch of the snow was melting. So there was water coming out at one point, probably 5 or 6 feet out from the curb. So when this was built originally, or I don't know if it's because of lack of maintenance or whatever, but the ditch has pretty much failed to carry that capacity going down there. So I think what we're proposing to do to make this work, to get the water down to the small stream that's at the bottom of the hill, should be a dramatic improvement. So that's something where I think will make the drainage problem a lot better for the abutters and for our project.
Any questions for Jeff?
I have a question, Jeff. Why is the ditch failing now? Is it not deep enough? Is it not?
It's not deep enough, not wide enough, and the volume of water that's coming into it now just can't go through it, and so it gets dumped out onto the road.
And the water is essentially flowing downhill towards the
Yes.
undeveloped area?
Yeah.
Okay. I saw there was a soil analysis. It was like CD. loam or?
Right.
what would-
Looking at the soil analysis online, it's a Paxton soil, and that's a C or D soil. The higher the letter, the A soil is like sand, water soaks right in. B soil is loam, and water soaks in well. But when you get to C and D, it has a lot of clays and fines in it, and so the water doesn't soak in. Of course, right now, with the ground frozen, none of it soaks in. So this probably is a worst-case scenario if you have a big rainstorm in the springtime, a warm day like today where it's 50 degrees out, it would create a lot of runoff from that hillside. If that happened in August, for example, a lot more of that water would stay on the ground. And so when I did the hydraulic model, I looked at a type D soil, which is the most water coming off of it, and compared that with now we're going to be paving and putting rooftop on part of this. So if the roofs are built well, none of the water goes through the roof. It all gets shut off. And so that change would amount to about 1 cubic foot per second, or 9/10 of a cubic foot per second during a 5-inch rainstorm. That's a 25-year rainstorm.
And all this water is essentially being directed towards that improved ditch?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. It's all right straight downhill.
And it's C and D type, Paxton C and D type soil, at least on the surface. If that hillside is removed or excavated, is that same soil composition?
No one knows.
Okay.
The soil maps are just surficial maps. So
Yeah.
it won't be any worse because the D soil is the worst type of, it creates the most runoff.
How much new soil is going to be brought in after the excavation?
Probably, I
happens?
think, after the excavation, we'll bring in new soil to put under the foundations, and there'll probably be some loam brought in to create the lawns. I haven't done a quantity of that we'd be bringing in, but it's much less than we'll be hauling off.
But I guess, would it be safe to assume that that soil will be able to absorb more water
Right.
than the soil that's there now?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, and also, right now, it's pretty steep running off there. The new lawn we're putting in is still going to drain toward the road, but it's going to be much flatter.
Yeah.
But of course, the pavement, that's the driveways and everything will shed 98% of the water, very little, There'll be some that'll be in the little cracks in the pavement, but very minor amounts.
Is the new soil just essentially topsoil, or are we talking about gravel or something underneath with stacked concrete?
Yeah, underneath the units, we'll have an engineered gravel that would be, suitable for the foundation. What will be on the surface, though, will be a loam suitable for growing lawn.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. It's been mentioned this is going to take a lot of trunk loads of material going back and forth. As has been pointed out, this is a very quiet neighborhood, and there's really no easy way to get to West River Road or KMD other than going through other quiet neighborhoods. Do y'all have, will you have set hours that you work that you can coordinate with the local?
Yeah, I believe the city has certain required times that they're allowed to work. I don't,
7 o'clock is the earliest.
yeah, 7 a.m. to probably, most of these crews stop at 4 or 5 in the afternoon,
So-
if not before.
How long do you think this project will go?
I don't know. It's going to take, well, it'll be several months to haul the material out, to build the foundations, to build the units. This will, and there'll be crews working inside. I think they'd like to try to build as much as they can to get it closed in before winter. And then they could work on it inside, on the heating and everything over the course of the winter. I don't know if they'll get that done this year or not, because it's a pretty large project there to excavate the hillside.
So What have you done, or what has the company done to mitigate the concerns of the people that live in that area with regard to a really major project going on in their neighborhood for a year or so at least? That's what it sounds
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that it's important to do, but at the same time, how are you working with the local folks that are going to be impacted by the noise and the commute and the extra traffic and all of that?
There's little you can do because it's a loop road. Evergreen Drive, if you've been up around there, is just a very simple loop road. We could come in one way and go out the other, or come in one way and go out the same way. That's something that the contractor will be responsible for doing. But nevertheless, you still got to have all these trucks going back and forth. So
Yeah, I was just, have you done anything to manage expectations, to tell people,
I think
for the next year, your life's going to be a bit tougher?
Yeah, they're already envisioning that. I've received several letters from, and I've received some nice questions from the neighborhood, and I've tried to answer them as honestly as I could as far as, it's a big construction project. It's in your front yard. There's little you can do to mitigate that, other than having the crews work just during the day. On some large projects like this, if I've been on some commercial sites that they would work 2 shifts. I think we'll probably have them just work 1 shift as far as, hauling materials back and forth. But it will be a challenge sometimes to get them to not start before 7 o'clock. But that's, when this happens, that's something that code enforcement can do something about. So if they call the city code enforcement could again remind the contractor that you can't start until 7. And another thing, I've talked to, I think I wrote in a letter to Mr. Auberge, who's the other engineer who reviewed this for the neighbors, and copied to the city engineer, is that, I lost my train of thought.
Well, I can.
Sorry.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
It's okay,
maybe
I
you were
lost
going to say that the contractor would have periodic meetings with the local community to tell them about progress and plans and changes, and maybe by keeping them in the loop, you would mitigate some of the
Yeah, I think that would
potential problems down the road.
Yeah, I think that is a great idea, and I think that would be very beneficial. What I was going to say is I recommended that we have, before construction begins, before people start working up there, have a pre-construction meeting with code enforcement, with the city engineer, perhaps with myself and the contractor, to just say, explain that you're in the middle of a neighborhood, that you are in these people's backyards or front yards, as it were, and try to maintain some sense of decorum and be professional. I had a project that I did in a nearby community, and the neighbors, we wanted to do a second phase to it, and the neighbors came in and said, all summer long, all we heard was heavy metal music blasting on stereos, and all kinds of filthy jokes and dirty language. That's something that the contractor would have some control over, and we're in that same situation here because we're right near the neighbors. So
I'm just encouraging the contractor to reach out to the community, establish some dialogue, and maintain that dialogue throughout the course of this project. This community, it's really quiet back there.
Yeah.
A lot of people on the roads walking, and it's going to be very disruptive. But I'm sure if you reach out to them, you can have some kind of mutual understanding that there is an end in sight, and there's a vehicle for them to complain and maybe have their complaints addressed during the course of the project.
Yeah, there's no way to be unobtrusive about doing this, but as long as we can get along and understand that, our clients want to build this, we need more housing, that sort of thing. That's, we have to, that is a great idea, having good communications back and forth.
Okay, go ahead, Don.
I'm no expert when it comes to soils. You folks are. But I try and use as much common sense as I can and try and address those things that are very obvious to me. I drove up to the property today, and I thought of walking the property.
It's pretty steep.
And you stated earlier that it's pretty steep, and I think I'd use another description. It's extremely steep. Again, I'm not the expert, but I can see that the soil that's there hasn't been successful in holding the trees to the ground. A lot of them have turned over, fallen over, and aren't able to grow. That tells me that we've got a lot of water up there.
We either have a lot of water or we may have ledge.
Now, Evergreen Drive, how wide is that road?
It's 24 feet or something. The one thing after the last meeting, or before the last meeting, I hadn't been up there, and the neighbor said it's such a narrow road. It's wider than the roads near my house.
Well,
it's wider than West Street that I live on.
Let me address that.
Yeah.
I went up there with my car, and I've got a very small car. And I went up Evergreen, I turned the corner, and right before there's a pathway, I guess someone has initiated some work as to where the road is going to go. So before I got to that, on the left-hand side, there were 2 cars parked, and on the right side, there was 1 car parked. And I could barely make it through with my small car. I can't imagine, let alone a fire truck, let alone a rescue truck getting through. Now,
And that's before we build this project.
that's a problem. And what's happening is that I understand the concerns about the neighbors and things, but I'm not going to give my blessings to anything that's going to compromise the safety of other people in this city. Now, the entrance to this new development, is it Mamie's dream? Okay, and I respect that. I mean, she has a dream to build something so other people can have a place to live. I spoke with some residents up there, and they also have a dream. And their dream was to buy and live there, and they've been living there, some of them, for 10, 15 years. So this road that's going to go up this hill is going to be how wide?
24 feet.
Okay. And it's going to end where? How far in?
About 170 feet.
170 feet. So at the end of 170 feet, there's no turnaround, there's no cul-de-sac. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So the truck's going to have to back out.
Yes.
Okay. Can you explain to me, or if there's someone here from the fire department, why is it that it's protocol for the fire department to back their trucks into their fire station? To me, if there's a call, they waste no time in driving straight out. So they're not going to compromise the safety of anyone in this city. They could easily drive in and back out.
The fire department, the gentleman I spoke with, said they have a standard protocol that they prefer to be able to go in and turn around.
But let me further state,
Yes.
and again, I'm no expert, but I've been to fires, and never have I ever seen one fire truck at a fire. No. Okay? So you're going to have maybe back-to-back fire trucks, and you're going to have a rescue unit there. Now, let's say that there's another call in the city. Do you see where someone is compromising time, and time is saving lives? Or am I mistaken something?
You have a valid concern, but the fact is, the fire department did say they have a certain distance that they want to back in, or can back out of. And I mentioned another project or another school in my neighborhood, the old high school on Gilman Street. I walk my dog around there every morning. The other morning, I was walking my dog around, and the truck had to come way in to the entrance at the back of that thing. And then they have to back all the way out. And I thought in the back of my head, they told me 150 feet. And so I kind of asked the police department about that, and they said, yeah, we don't like it over there. But they offered to do 150 feet as a standard distance that they can back up. That's the best that we can do on this property.
I don't think it is, because there's been some discussion of a turnaround.
Right.
And what's the problem with the turnaround? Is it because someone's going to have to spend a little bit more money to develop that cul-de-sac?
If we put in
Let me ask you this, very simple. Can a cul-de-sac be put in?
No.
Why?
Because if you did that, right now, we're going halfway up the property with the excavation. If we put in a turnaround, then we'd turn around a fire truck. We'd have to go close to the rest of the property. That is a lot of extra soil to haul out of there.
Aren't they going to have that same problem when they back out of Evergreen?
No,
Well,
I don't believe so. They are aware of this and gave their permission. So, that is a very valid concern. I understand your.
well, it's a valid concern, not because I have a neighbor that's saying I'm going to have water in my basement. It's a valid concern because we're compromising time, which could cause the life of somebody else in this city. And if that fire department person can look that person in the eye that lost somebody and say, I approve this, and I'm awfully sorry for what happened, that's going to be a difficult task.
That's his job.
Yep. Well,
But also, we have two
we
ambulances.
can avoid
Yeah.
having him to make that tough decision.
Right, and I would like to avoid that. But I feel that this is a reasonable compromise, because without that, taking away that entire hillside would be cost prohibitive.
Have anyone discussed a hammerhead?
Yes, that's what I mean to make a hammerhead. Because you have to go 45 feet beyond, or 50 feet beyond the hammerhead, then back in, it's 50 feet over that way to turn around. Right now, we're going about 10 feet beyond the last house.
So there's not going to be a hammerhead?
No,
Okay.
but you could use these driveways.
Whose driveway?
The driveways in front of the condos.
The people that are living there, whose cars may be in the
Cars
driveway?
may be in the driveway, but maybe not all of them.
We're asking an awful lot.
I don't believe so, sir. I think this is a compromise and an accommodation that the fire department has said that they could make.
On the findings and facts, it does say, or on the conditions, it says, the fire department access roads that exceed 5% grade shall require Waterville fire apparatus to perform an operational drive test.
Yes.
So if that doesn't go well,
If that doesn't go well, the options we could do is widen the driveway out,
okay, so why can't we just do that?
because they aren't going to be hauling their big truck up here, I don't believe. If there's a fire, is there a fire?
I don't know.
over here?
Chief Frost, are you able to? Sorry to put you on the spot. Oh, sorry, I didn't see.
Good thing I came
The
tonight, huh?
deputy.
Hi, folks. I'm
Hello.
Jason. I'm the fire chief here in Waterville. How is everybody tonight? So I did talk to my deputy chief, who did look at this plan. Of course, we look at all plans that come into the city of Waterville. As stated before, the road was much longer. We did cut it down to come within. So this right here, back up. This right here is our book of laws that we run with the fire department, okay? Chapter 18 tells us about our fire department access roads. We can provide up to 150 feet in length before we have to put any type of turnaround or dead ends. Because of the width of this driveway, I guess, because of the width of the entrance, the width of the driveway, we can allow this.
Okay.
Do I have concerns? I'll be honest, I have concerns about every place that gets built in the city of Waterville because I want to make sure it's as safe as possible. The way construction is built nowadays, it's much safer than it's ever been. So, that is something that we can always work with. For any one of these buildings, it's like, I'm just trying to think of like any street that we have down on the south end or any street we have anywhere in the city. A lot of our streets are very narrow, very small. This will actually be bigger than a lot of streets that we go down in the city of Waterville. Our biggest truck is our tower. So usually our tower is the first due truck in. In like any street that we have in the city of Waterville, our tower is going to take up a good portion of this entrance. We will have usually one more backup engine that'll follow, that'll hook the hydrant down, and the hydrants are pretty close here, so we do have good water here. So as far as this, I mean, yeah, there's always concerns with everything we do, but we went by our letter of what we have for laws to work with, and it does fall within those. So that's why it's written the way that it is. The only real question and real concern I really do have is my tower has a massive front bumper and a very long overhang. My only fear that I have is being able to turn into the drive and not tear my bumpers off as we do that, because I don't want that to happen.
Excuse me, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when you say drive, you mean driveway?
Yep.
Someone's driveway?
No.
No,
Drive
onto that
into the entrance to this complex.
Okay, but did you hear this gentleman here say that in backing out, one of the options could be is backing into somebody's driveway?
We'll probably back out of the whole thing. I mean, the truck is almost 40 feet long. It's going to take up most of this thing anyway, so. So that's my biggest fear is my overhangs, though, is being able to drive in. I'm not an engineer, so I trust these folks to tell me that it's going to fit, and like we do with any project in the city of Waterville. I mean, we have to go by what our engineers are telling. I wish I was an engineer. I'd probably be a lot smarter than I am now, but. So that's the only thing I can do. I did drive up there today myself because I wanted to look at how things are going up there. It is a steep incline, I understand that. We are actually, usually we go around that area when we're testing our trucks. My deputy chief has been in this city for almost 15 years now. He tells me that we've never had a problem in that area with moving our trucks around in that area. And we did measure Evergreen Drive just because my concern was how wide the road was, and it is almost 24 feet wide. We require a 20-foot road, so it's 4 feet bigger than what my book tells me that we need.
How wide is it, sir?
Evergreen Drive is 24 feet wide.
Okay, but how wide is that 24 feet if you've got parking on the left? I went up there today, as you did. There are 2 vehicles on the left and 1 vehicle on the right. So what does that leave for your fire truck to get through? Or we're not even going to think that there's a perfect storm. All right, there's never going to be a perfect storm. Whenever there's a fire, there's not going to be any cars on Evergreen Drive. There's never going to be any car in any driveway on this new road that you're going to put in. And it's going to be an absolutely perfect situation for you folks to put the fire out, back into somebody's driveway because they're not home or they put the car in the garage and simply drive out and go home.
I've never fought fire in a perfect situation in my career. I mean, I can't account for those things. I don't know.
I know, I understand.
Well, I'd also like to make the comment, there's already houses back there. If people are parking on both sides of the street, they're probably doing it to try to slow traffic down. I've lived on a narrow street before. Neighbors do that, right? If they're doing that today, they're putting their own properties at risk or their neighbors' properties at risk if there were an emergency and emergency vehicles can't get up there. This isn't going to increase that risk, this development.
Of course it is.
Why? That risk exists today. If there was an emergency today when you were up there, would an emergency vehicle be able to get through?
So what are you saying? There's not going to be any fires up in that area?
I'm saying that the risk already exists.
The risk doesn't already exist because we don't have the development. Let me ask you.
No. I'm talking about all of the other developments that are already there.
It's as clear to me as the nose on my face. Do you allow your fire trucks to drive directly into your fire station?
No.
Why?
because it's quicker for them to drive out.
Okay, and that's as simple for me for that answer for this development right here. And it's quicker for them to get out because time is of the essence. Am I correct? Mm-hmm. Time will save lives.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
So my only question is, so is that why we have on the findings and facts about if it's more than 5%, that we have to do the apparatus test because you're concerned about if the big truck can make it?
I am. I'm worried
Without
about my bumper scraping
yeah.
when we go up in.
So that's where we get the 5%?
Yeah, and
Okay.
that comes straight from my books.
Yep, okay.
And of course, we give these folks our truck dimensions,
Yep.
and they can run us CAD systems, and doesn't mean that it'll always be perfect in the end, but that's what we look for when we do any of this stuff. You know, I can assure you that if we have a fire anywhere, I can promise you that this city is still covered no matter what the fire is, no matter what we're doing, because we always backfill our station with other departments. I mean, I promise you, no matter where we go, what we have for a fire, I'm going to make sure that this city is still covered. That's my job. And I promise if there was a fire in this area, we'd take care of this fire and still also cover the station.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, we will open it up to public comment, Jeff. You have to come up to the mic if you want to do public comment and speak into the mic. Hi.
Say your name.
Yeah, my name's Alan Giroux, G-E-R-O. I live on 330 Evergreen Drive, Waterville, Maine. We've lived there for 9 years, and it's a very quiet place. It's, like Mr. Niles said, there's a lot of senior citizens, and we cherish it very highly. Because we also got Seton Village, and they come up a lot. People walk their dogs. They're in wheelchairs. They're pushing. They're on walkers like I am. And there is a lot of traffic up there. I've been up there 8 years. My wife walks 3 times a day to keep in shape. Right now, I can't do it. Hopefully, I will. I'm waiting for a heart procedure down in Portland. But I'm going to say right now, I've lived in Waterville a long time, and I've lived on the West River Road. And it's a beautiful, beautiful area for the town of Waterville to be able to go at Inland Hospital on lunch hours and walk all the way over to the golf course. In the summertime, you can't do it in the spring. That runs off, because I lived in West River Road, and I rode four-wheeler snow machines out back there when I was a young pup. And in the spring of the year, we haven't had no snow for about 4 years now. We haven't had much of a runoff, but the airport's right up top. And there, right behind the golf course, there's a big, big, big pond. They dug it for a reason, for runoffs, so the golf course can dry up early in the spring. But what I'm trying to say is basically the safety feature of it is very, very important. I like what Mr. Niles said. You know, old people, when they're in a wheelchair, sometimes they don't pay attention. When they're wheeling a child up there, because it's very safe, people know everybody, and they might have a little grandson walking them, and all of a sudden, there's a few people that drive up in through there that are visiting people, and they drive in. We put out, there should be a speed limit, because I don't care how wide the roads are. I've been up there. When you make the turn from my house and make the bend up with it, you saw where that path goes up, and there's people in the summertime during the 4th that they park their cars out there. It would be a big mess. I know they park buses, road buses, because they also take senior citizens to hospitals, doctors, and things. See, we're dealing with, basically, when I bought that place, I thought basically just put 2 and 2. They made a beautiful walk area out back for this Waterville and everything. I thought it was great for people to be able to walk and do it. And I like the quietness and the safetiness of it. And be honest with you right now, this has kind of been thrown on every one of us, and a lot of people can't even come here tonight because they can't walk at night, they can't drive at night. We got senior citizens that are like myself. I'm almost 80. And you know what? Your life can change just like that. But what a great feeling it is to be able to know an ambulance can come up there anytime, and they can haul you out of there. And I think it's very important. I don't think there's enough been said about that area, because I just read the paper that he sent out in the doors Sunday, and they're going to blow up there. They got a lot of boulders on that whole ridge, and they're going to blow all summer with it. They got to have gravel trucks. I know a little bit about gravel trucks backing up, backing in, and the whole 9 yards. They're probably going to have bulldozers up in there. Is that fair for a taxpayer's money to not even be able to use that for how long? You know, and I just myself, I'm just getting it off my chest, and I'm speaking for a lot of people that can't be here tonight, but there's a lot of people up there, and I got people right here that in the gray homes that are they're not condominiums like my place is, a townhouse. They live in capes. They got some beautiful gray homes all the way out around the outside. There's men that been living there. I know a gentleman right now, he's here tonight. Him and his wife have been there for, I don't know how many years, 30-something years. And he says he's been there when his backside all the way around got soaked. The drainage is not good there. We've had to put sump pumps. You can't get water insurance. How would you like to have a game room and have that water come down there in the spring without this going on?
Neighbor's game room was flooded.
And that's an everyday occurrence. That's it. We've been very fortunate this year. We've had to dry, no snow. But I'm telling you right now, it's a big concern. And I'll let you talk, honey.
And about the cars that you saw, they're out there because every time they have to plow that driveway where those other 2 condos are, they don't have a garage. They have no place to park. They have to park their cars there. So they're always there, all winter and in the summertime too. They park out there. So I don't know of any time that I've walked around there that there hasn't been 2 lanes of cars parked. One on one side and some on the other. They're always there. So that weren't just a thing that happened. They don't have garages.
Right, but this development doesn't change that.
No.
No, what I'm trying to say is about the fire trucks getting through. There's always cars parked there. They have to move their vehicles there when they're getting plowed out in the winter. They have nowhere else to put the cars. They have to put them on that corner that come in front of their condos.
I understand, but we just heard the fire chief, just to clarify, say that he wasn't concerned about getting back there with his fire trucks.
With the cars on each side, he weren't concerned?
I mean, this is what I heard him say. My street is narrower than that, and people park on both sides of it, and the fire trucks go down it. I don't.
That goes like a curve though. It goes around.
Oh, I understand.
Yeah.
I'm just.
But anyway, I'm just explaining why those cars are out there and that they're always out there. It's not, once in a while.
And,
Okay.
you know, can I?
And then
Okay.
we won't be able to walk. We won't be able to walk our dogs, our grandchildren. We won't be able to enjoy it. None of us. And a lot of people walk their grandchildren and their dogs. They come up from Seton Village and walk up there. It just won't be quiet anymore if that goes in.
Okay, thank you.
Could I just say one quick thing? As far as, how would I say this? I know how long it takes for a project that size. I know not a lot about it, but in my younger days, I did a little bit of construction. And I know what bulldozers are all about. I know what it is when the economy is strong and we're struggling in Waterville and we can't take care of our roads. And when they dig that place up and it makes potholes and it's going to be bald, and then we're going to come into winter and you're gonna have holes and banging up, I know the mess it's gonna make. And I really was surprised that land didn't sell for 8, 10 years because people it wasn't feasible to blow rocks out of there and do what you're talking right now. Now they're gonna put something real big in there, and I think building projects move way too fast, in my opinion. And people don't do their homework totally. And then you get into a senior citizen, this place should have everybody there, but they're not capable of even coming out of their home tonight. I know a lot of them. A lot of people are not representing what's going on. So you push it through too quick, and there's a price to pay. But I'm going to be quiet. I've got more concerns. I'm uptight right now, and my ticker's going boom, boom.
Yeah, don't do that.
And I'm going to get my
You're
cell
not having
phone.
your heart
But thank you for my time.
Thank
And
you.
it will be what it's going to be. But I like what I heard tonight about safety comes first. And safety means all of the time. Ambulances, speeding tickets, you got to have safety first. And when you got old people that can't see good and they're willing to carry, I've had to stop my car because I'm an old buck myself, but I could have hit somebody walking a child. You got to move slow there.
So, sir, if you're concerned about not having a speed limit or anything on the road, you have to contact the city council and or the police department. Yeah, we don't have any jurisdiction over road speeds.
Okay, so those trucks, when they start construction, can come in fast as much as they want then?
Well,
They are on
I'm just
time
saying,
clock.
I don't have any, I cannot police the speed of the road.
No.
It's not in our jurisdiction. We follow the building ordinances and the town ordinances. So you have to contact the police department, who does have the authority to enforce a speed limit.
Be honest with you, I appreciate your time, okay?
Thank you.
And I think you got some people here that might want to share a little. I got to go.
Hi, my name's Debbie Cunningham. I live at 314 Evergreen Drive. I have been in my residence since August, and I would like to note that, well, I purchased it in August, and that prior to the snow flying, there was water running in the road. So I would like to make that observation. I'll direct my comments based on the regulations. So where I have concerns that perhaps things are not clear, I'm not an expert. All I can do is read what was presented to me and try to understand as a citizen whether or not I think the threshold has been met. I am not the experts that you are, so I accept that I may be wrong in some circumstances, and I welcome your input on that front. Paragraph 1.3.1.d, paragraph D. The development will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in the capacity of the land to hold water so that a dangerous or unhealthy condition may result either on or off-site. If the development proposed to discharge stormwater runoff at an increased rate compared to pre-application rate into a municipal stormwater management system, then the developer shall improve or pay for the improvement of that municipal stormwater system so that it will have the capacity to handle such an increase. So I direct the board's attention to, pardon me, to to the application which said that they described the soil as non-hydronic and well-drained. So I'd ask you to compare that to Mr. Boyle's study that was submitted, the soil scientist study, where he described it as hydronic and cited blowdowns and surface saturation on the first page of his study. So I believe it's an error in fact to describe the soil as non-hydronic and well-drained in the application. The developer's engineer responded to Mr. Robert's study indicating how much increase there would be in drain, and I understand we need to talk in real numbers, so in terms of cubic inches and those kinds of things. But what is represented there is a 31% increase in an already overtaxed system. So I regard a 31% increase in stormwater drainage as substantial, and simply meeting the equivalent of that increase is already been demonstrated by the engineer's own testimony not to be adequate, because the current system is not adequate, and that it's incumbent on the developer to pay for those improvements. And I ask that those improvements be made before any other operations are conducted on the project. The developer's engineer's supplemental review identified that the system's already overtaxed. I apologize for that. That's a duplicate. With regard to paragraph 1.3.1E, the development will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion or unsafe conditions with respect to the use of the highways or public roads existing or proposed, both on and off-site. The letter from the city engineer identified the 2,000 or more truckloads to remove the earth and matter. It wasn't until I arrived tonight and began hearing about what will be then trucked in. My understanding is that no estimate has been made on how much will have to be brought in, so we don't know how many more trucks that involves. The letter from the city engineer fails to address the pedestrian traffic and the safety of the pedestrian traffic on the road. Citizens have a right within Maine to have pedestrian-first traffic. The letter from the engineer does not address the increased street parking that is likely to occur. We've heard about the street parking. It does happen. When I came home today briefly from work because I was having my propane tank refilled. The mail carrier was parked on one side, right by some mailboxes, and a car was parked on the other side. And it was in the curve when you first come off of Ridgeway Drive onto Evergreen Drive. It's a blind curve. And so that's what I pulled into, is that situation, and I had to navigate it very carefully. We should expect, it is reasonable, probable, not just possible, it is probable that with an increased number of 12 units, which could be anywhere from 12 to 48 additional residents, and any or all of whom may have a right to a vehicle, that there will be increased parking on the street. So it's incumbent to, even though the current risk exists, it's incumbent on the board to account for the increased risk brought on by the development and not to allow the creation of an unsafe environment. I'm still wrapping my head around the 2,000 dump trucks coming in and out. This is not a number I'm used to thinking in terms of vehicles. And the city engineer's letter did not address how that will happen in a one-way in, one-way out community. I mentioned at the last meeting where I spoke that it's not simply Evergreen Drive that's one way in and one way out. Both ends of the loop of Evergreen Drive end at Ridgeway. Ridgeway ends on on John Ave. And you can't split the traffic into two directions until you get to the intersection of John Avenue and Carver Street. Both of those roads, through both of those roads, is Seton Village, which is a vulnerable population and deserves our protection. So failing to address how these trucks, this many trucks, will move while I still get to work, while I still come home from work, from how my neighbors will move about for medical appointments and those kinds of things, boggles my mind. It is simply, to me, unfathomable that within the space provided, that it is a reasonable expectation that this can be accomplished. I was talking to a colleague today, and I was describing the problem. I said, 2,000 dump trucks. If they have 3 dump trucks, how many can go out in a day? And she teased me and said, well, you're asking me to do Common Core math. And I'm like, yeah, somebody's going to have to do the Common Core math on this and find out how long, how many days, how many weeks or months this will go on within this neighborhood, this highly disruptive, unsafe environment that will be created.
Ma'am, I just did the math, and let's assume 3 trucks per hour. You can come up with some numbers, 4 trucks. There's going to be a lot of traffic, and it's probably going to be on the order of 3 or 4 months. And it's that kind of thing, and it's going to be a pain, it's going to be a safety issue, and it's something that we have to consider and address. And if the project goes forward, we've got to be very careful about working closely with the contractor to make sure that they're aware constantly of the people that are walking on those streets. And so it is a manageable number, but it is going to be a pain.
It sounds like a nightmare to me, because all of those, when those trucks leave, if they go out via John Ave and they go onto West River Road, they will immediately go into the turn-in lane for the daycare and preschool at Temple Academy. So are we going to allow these trucks to move about when parents are trying to enter and leave a preschool and daycare facility? And when they're trying to pick them up, are we concerned about sometimes in the mornings when I go to work, I usually go around 7:30 or 8 o'clock, between 7:30 and 8 in the morning to go to work. When I leave, sometimes traffic, and I'm on John Avenue, sometimes traffic is already backed up, making that turn into that daycare and preschool. And that's the first educational facility encountered on West River Road, not the last.
As a parent who did that drive for many years, I understand the backups, and I think this is very important information to provide as feedback, that this is the situation you're going into, and maybe working with the contractor to make sure that they don't do that.
I haven't heard yet a plan for how that will happen, sir.
Understand.
So in fact, that plan came from the board. It did not come from the developer. So the spirit of engagement may be lying in the wrong hands. So under safety, I will also observe that in the last rendering that I saw, the driveway for this development aligns with the driveway for another set of condos that lies across the street and downhill. Again, in the realm of probabilities, not possibilities, when it ices in Maine, people slide through their driveways. I had that experience on my driveway. I'm fortunate in my driveway in that if I go past the road, I have a guardrail to stop me. I hope not to encounter it, but that's what I have. What these residents will have is someone else's driveways, someone else's garage, somebody else's cars. I therefore ask that the plan be changed so that these driveways are not aligned, because this is, quite frankly, now a known risk for the plan. I'll turn your attention to paragraph 1.3.1.n. The development will identify on any maps submitted as part of an application under this ordinance all potential wetlands within the proposed site and subdivision, regardless of the size of these wetlands, and any river, stream, or brook as defined in Title 38 MRSA Section 480-B, paragraph 9, as amended from time to time, that is within or abuts the subject property in the application.
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, but we have a lot of people to talk today and quite a few things to get through, so I'm going to have to ask you to wrap up your comments.
Okay, so let me say this. that I think there are a number of concessions that have been made from the fire department on to try to get this project through. As a result, as I described the project to my insurance agent, they recommend that I buy flood insurance, adding to my annual cost for my living in Waterville, which and again, I've been here since August. I was advised not to come. I was advised not to buy in Waterville, and I regret my decision. I ask that if you choose to move forward with this project, number one, make sure the streams are identified. They are identified in Mr. Boyle's study. I ask that you hire a third party to manage the concerns between the developer, the contractor, and the residents. It is not fair for code enforcement from the city to have to deal with. This is a massive development, and there's a large number of residents. It's not a realistic expectation for the city to bear this cost. I ask that you limit the times and days of construction in keeping with, to avoid school traffic, because our children are a priority in the city of Waterville. I ask that flaggers be present at all time when heavy equipment or dump trucks are on the road, and that they provide priority movement to citizen vehicles, not to the dump trucks. I also ask that that if indeed they decide they're going to blast, that they return to this board and with a plan for how that's going to be done without further disrupting the health and safety of this community.
Thank you. And did the city engineer come tonight? Did the city engineer make it? Okay. All right. Oh, okay. There he is. Okay. Didn't see him.
I'm kind of short.
Yep, you're fine.
Hi, I'll be quick. I promise. A couple things
Yeah,
I
could
haven't
you state
heard.
your name, please,
I've heard
sir?
a lot. Richard Fitzgerald. Sorry.
Thank you.
A couple things I haven't heard, and I've been at both meetings. There's an extension to the off of the main drive when you go around here is an extension of Greenwood Drive. We've been told for years, we plow it ourselves, we get it tarred ourselves, we pay for it, we do everything that has to be done. We've been told that it's not wide enough for us to be a city street. And that's been going on. I'm the guy that lived there for 32 years. So that's been like that. We've been getting that answer for many years. And that if they do widen that extension, they have to widen all the other streets in the development to come up to, because they're not, none of them are wide enough now. So what do we want to do about that? It would be a few dollars they'll have to spend. When I first moved in down there, this is 32 years ago, hard to believe, I lived at the bottom of the hill. And our first week there, everything was melting. The water came down the side of the hill and wiped out our foundation. We had to have mushroom come, tear the side of the building, put a new foundation in all the way down the side. And we ended up doing that 5 or 6 times on that same path. And that's right where the water comes down, comes from the top of the airport all the way down to the bottom. So there is a lot of runoff down there, a lot of runoff. I can go over there with you right now and stand in the back. It's a pretty good time to check it. And you're going to have mud over your shoes. And behind that, there's a big pool of water out in the woods that just keeps seeping in, keeps seeping in. And I don't see how you can fix it. I just don't see. But I just want to let those things be known, especially with the extension on Evergreen Drive. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, my name is Carl Diker, but I'm not speaking for myself here. I've been asked to read a statement from another resident who is not able to be here tonight because she has an injury. This is written by Kathleen Kelly, who resides at 304 Evergreen Drive, directly across from the proposed project. Here are my concerns, and she has 4 of them. When there is no snow during a heavy rainstorm, water cascades down the hill, runs behind the curbing if the ditch is not full of debris, and flows onto Evergreen Drive at the curve across from one of the driveways of Building 3 of Ridgewood Forest Townhomes. That being said, with proposed drainage plans from the site and the city's plans to construct a culvert beneath the access drive, hopefully the city will give better attention to maintaining it than it does the culvert which runs under Evergreen Drive near Building 1. Number 2, parking. What are the plans for accommodation of the number of vehicles per unit? Guest parking accommodations? On-street parking certainly should not be an option for guests, as Evergreen Drive is not wide enough to handle it. Number 3, appearance. Is there a document depicting the exterior design of the condos? Will they be in keeping with the community? And number 4, emergency access. Fire is my worst fear. To educate the board, that wooded lot is just a tinderbox with blown down trees dating back to the ice storm in the late 1990s. Cigarette butts from passing vehicles can often be found alongside the road. It's an accident waiting to happen. It is imperative emergency vehicles, especially fire equipment, have safe access to the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
Regina Oliver, 407 Evergreen. I live on the extension, so that he mentioned. But what I'm concerned about is right behind my house, the stream runs down. And it's been pretty wild the last few days because of the runoff and the rain. So I'm wondering what their concern is, what their thoughts are about accessing that stream. I know that Carl is one whose cellar's been flooded. I haven't had that opportunity at my house. I hope I don't. But I think that they have to be concerned about the direction of the flow of the water and put in some culverts and ditching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You'd probably like, please go away. Good evening. I'm Lisa Policoin. I live at 217. So I just, maybe for some perspective on, I think the question came up earlier of where does this additional water come from? I think this board, could be wrong, probably less than 10 years ago made a decision next to the airport to put solar panels. There's a solar field out there. So you have the airport and then you have a solar field. And what that did was it took out a ton of the vegetation. And so now what happens is it causes additional flow down down the hill, and which is putting more, just putting more water into the street and draining down, so that what used to be a little bit more absorbed from the top before it started coming down the hill, without that, because part of the trail got taken out from Inland Trail, without that, it just comes down as little streams that are getting wider. So my property abuts this. So I am at 217, so they would be my neighbors. So I can look out my backyard and see the rivers that are coming down the stream, coming down the hill now, which wasn't there prior to the solar panel project. So that might be what's accounting for some even additional runoff right now, which would cause additional issues going forward. So maybe just for some perspective on that question earlier that one of you asked about. Why do we suddenly have more drainage? We do from a prior project. So when that land was probably originally cited to be residential on that area in the hill and the embankment, you had the ability to hold some of that water back that now we don't.
Thank you.
Well, I had written something, and I don't know if I want to read it. My name is Eric Dumont. I live on Evergreen Drive. I'm president of the Ridgewood West Condominium Association as well, where we have the two big green buildings, 16 units in all. And we park alongside the road in the wintertime so they can come in and plow our parking lot. roughly 22 cars are parked alongside the road. It could be from anywhere from 1 hour to 6 hours in the wintertime. In the summertime, we have a bus that, guy drives a bus, he's got a little bus there, there are cars on both sides of the road. So it can create a problem. Fire trucks come in, maybe they can get by, maybe they can't, I don't know. My biggest worry here is the safety and the environmental health of the area. Oh, and by the way, this isn't for us. This isn't Mamie's dream. It's Mamie's nightmare for us residents in the area. It's horrible. We feel like we're being told to suck it up as taxpayers and put up with it. Really? We've been there a long time. Now we have to put up? Really? So they can build what they want, do what they want? Ever see a dump truck jockey go up and down the road? Ever see those guys? Going up and down KMD, going up and down West River Road? They travel like fools. They're going to be in a hurry. We're going to be calling all the time and not getting any satisfaction from anything. That's the problem. Logistically, it's not feasible. 2,000 loads of dirt, rock, concrete? Really? 2,000 loads? My God, man. That's probably 10 tons per load. That's over 20,000 tons of material. Imagine that. Imagine that going by your houses, around the areas where you walk, or you walk your dog. Imagine that. So we, as a small community in Waterville, have to put up with it. Oh, geez, suck it up, guys. Pay taxes, guys. Your taxes went up, guys. Keep paying. It ain't right. It ain't right at all. So that's about all I got to say.
Thank you. Any other comments from members of the public?
Good evening. My name's Steve Sear. I live at 306 Evergreen Drive, and it's gone now, but that driveway is square in line with mine. So if I see like a trailer showing up with a backhoe,
I'll get it back up.
yeah, it's fine, with an excavator on it, dropping it down and letting it off its sled, it's going to be very heavy. It's got tracks that are going to dig into the tarmac of our road surface. I don't see that as being a good thing at all. But I'm firmly against having this project here. But what confounds me so much is when these units are supposedly built and done, after all of the money that this bank has loaned to Mamie's Dream, I can't imagine what those renters are going to be charged for their units.
Well, they're going to be condominiums.
Excuse me. I see this as one way. She needs to make a profit to pay back her loans. How is she going to do that if she doesn't charge enough for rent?
Well, they're condominiums, so someone's
That's
going to
fine.
be purchasing them,
Right.
not
So
renting them.
are they going to be well within, are they going to be like $500,000 per unit?
That is not the purview of the planning board.
No. I don't see how she,
That is the open market.
this is going to benefit anybody. A loan that can be made on this project, that's up to the bank. I don't see how a profit can be made, because she's not doing this, or
Well, with all
he.
due respect, that's the developer's risk that they're taking.
That's true.
And that really does not have anything to do with our ordinances. So I need you to stay on.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm firmly against this project. In no way do I approve of this. I don't have the power to that. You 5 people do. I assume you have a quorum tonight and can vote for this if that is what you are inclined to do. And I just don't see how this is going to be a profitable. Because one thing that concerns me, when that airport was built, and not many people know this, but the original runway, which is no longer used when there was biplanes and that was first made, was right at the, it's almost right at the end of that, top of that hill. I can only guess that back in the 30s, when that runway was made, the regulations were very loose, and they probably pushed everything loose that they had to scrape to make one small runway right down that hill. Now, all that's up there is poplar trees. Poplar trees do not have massive root systems, and they blow over very easily in the wind and snow conditions and ice. And I'm just flabbergasted that this project is set up the way it is. I just don't see it. If you are so inclined tonight to approve this project, I just want to warn all of our residents out here, there is a law in Maine that says you have to be facing the traffic if you are a pedestrian. So, at the southern end of Building 3, where there is a very big curve and the sloped driveway, you have to be, if you're walking downhill, you have to be walking next to Building 3. There is a blind curve with trees. You cannot see. So if you're just coming around prior to the driveway and a truck is barreling through and you are in probably great danger. So the law in Maine says you have to walk as a pedestrian facing traffic. You can't have them looking, you can't have your back to
Sir,
the
I have to
traffic.
have you make your comments germane to the ordinances and this
Right.
development,
Yes.
please.
I'm just warning my fellow residents.
Okay, you can warn them all you want, but like, we
Okay.
need to keep things on
All right.
topic here.
Well, just know that I don't like this project. Thank you
Okay?
very much.
Thank you.
May I?
Sure.
For those that, are you going to speak?
Yes.
Please do.
Hello, I will try to be eloquent. I didn't have anything planned, but my neighbors have kind of sparked a fire in me. So Lauren Grosso, 214 Evergreen Drive, GROSSO. So my concern, and thank you for listening to us as the taxpayers, that's something we need everyone to understand, that we're the taxpayers. We're not random people saying, hey, oh, I don't like that. No, we don't want more houses. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that this isn't a good idea for the community. If you are putting he has said apartments in all of his documents. Just all of a sudden, within the past few days, when we hired our own engineer, as retired young people who don't have a lot of money, we don't have lawyers, we don't have engineers in our back pocket. Clearly, I would think the board could see what a big issue this is if this many people are coming out, if we're hiring our own engineer. Is it apartments or is it condos? And if it's condos, why have there been no condominium documents submitted like we had to for our associations? The project should not move forward until more questions have been answered. So the safety, absolutely. I mean, do we really want to put Seton Village Do we want to put our own senior citizens dealing with not just the original project, but the extra traffic it's going to bring? And I don't care if it's 24 feet or 12. It is a narrow road. People are not parking on the road purposefully to slow traffic. I have never heard of that. I can tell you my neighbors are not doing that. That sounds sneaky. We park on the road because we really don't have enough parking within our own parking lot. So you're telling me that if you have 12, 24, 36, I think what this gentleman was getting at is if rent's so expensive, how many people are going to need to be living in these units? People aren't going to be paying a ton of money to live there in Waterville. So you're going to get 3, 4 people, college students. So you're going to have a lot of vehicles. They need to assimilate then to the community. And how do we do that with making what we pay taxes? Evergreen Drive, you guys, the city of Waterville is getting well over $100,000 a year, like minimum. I was trying to do the math. So we just really need to think of the taxpayers. We need to think of safety, which has been brought up multiple times. Apartments, I'm saying that again, is it apartments or are these going to be purchased? If they're purchased, that's different. Then you're looking at about 12 to 24 vehicles and people who may want to actually keep the community nice because they have an ownership in it and they're not just renting. And then the road maintenance. I don't know what the planning board does or if this is a different board that does this, but the roads are already horrible. I mean, the roads are already horrible. So I just don't know. I just don't know how we actually, instead of saying I just don't know how, somehow whatever board that's supposed to be needs to have a plan in place beforehand to fix the roads because they're already horrible. We know they'll get worse. So we need to have something in place of, okay, after this project is done, this is on the books for your roads to be fixed as taxpayers who need safe roads so that we're not getting flat tires from all the potholes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
For those who have come to the podium tonight, if I may, I want to state that you did so with conviction, courage, and good faith. Just a couple of comments I want to make is there is nothing that we know that you don't know. There is nothing that you feel that we don't feel. We do not have power. What we do have is authority. And authority granted to us through our charter is we have guidelines. And the guidelines we have is the ordinance. And we have a proposal before us, whatever the name is, and what we must consider and what we must only consider. We may feel other things that you feel, believe me. I've lived in Waterville all my life. My mother lived here all of her life, and my grandparents from Lebanon lived here all of their lives. I love this place. I will not go anywhere else. And as I've lived here, during the 50s, you'd see houses being built or that have already been built with a single-car garage. And you get into the 70s and the 80s, in the 90s, you see homes being built now with 2-car garages, 3-car garages. The city's growing. We have to manage that. And as we manage it, these are our guidelines. We have to take a look at what this project is. We have to look at where the project is being proposed to be built. And then we have to ask ourselves some questions. Is it in a proper zone? The answer is yes. And does it meet all the guidelines as far as safety and as far as utilities and things like that? Those are the things that we have to consider. Do I understand that there's going to be a lot of traffic Of course there is. Of course there is. Construction will bring traffic. Construction will create issues for people who have always parked on Evergreen Drive. And I'm, for one, I don't believe, all due respect to everyone who's disagreed with me, that if there are cars parked on the left and cars parked on the right, abreast from each other on Evergreen, you're going to have a tough time to get a car through without having to take your time and look left and right. Trust me. I've seen fires in my time here. One fire was on Squire Street off Western Avenue. That's one way in. And there was more than one fire truck there. There's more than 2 fire trucks there, and there was more than a rescue truck there. It was a congested area. It was a terrible situation. So it is a big issue. It's a big issue for you, and it's a big issue for us. And I understand the anger, the frustration, and the loud voices. There is nothing wrong with that. This reaches you folks to the core. This is where you live. This is your life. And if it does go through, are you going to see more traffic? Yes, you are. And as my colleague to my left had mentioned, that the development that being proposed is not creating the traffic that you and I see today. It's there today. There's nothing to do with this development. But as a citizen, as a taxpayer, as a father, as a grandfather, and as a developer, I've developed in this city. I have one development on Upper Main Street with higher-end homes. I built 12 houses up there. I knew I was going to live there, raise my family, and hopefully my grandchildren would be around, and they are, 3 of them across the street. And when I built that Country Way, I would not build it unless there was a turnaround. And it cost me big money at the outset. I put a cul-de-sac in. The vehicles could come in and come out. I was concerned about my safety, my children's safety, and my grandchildren's safety. So as I look at this project, my greatest concern is the folks that are living up in that area, not because there's going to be more traffic. And I say that respectfully. Not that there's going to be an issue with water, and I agree. I believe that there is going to be an issue. Mark my word, I'll be the first one to tell you in 5 years, I told you so. I'm concerned with the safety. I understand the police department, I understand the fire department, that this isn't the best scenario. Well, if we're looking at Front Street, we can't do anything about it. That's our scenario. It's there. It's built. But why are we going to risk something that's going to compromise the safety if it hasn't been built yet? That's my greatest concern. That's my greatest concern. So please, these folks that are sitting up here, it's weighing on us as well as it's weighing on you. And whatever decision is made is going to be made in accordance with our ordinance, not because how we feel about the traffic. We understand your concerns, and I thank you for your patience in listening to me going on here. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Yep. Jeff, did you mention earlier about the new culvert that you were going to put in?
Yes,
to address
there
some of
will
the-
be a can't remember if I said a 15 or an 18-inch culvert under the driveway going in, because uphill of the driveway, in the middle of the ditch, is a catch basin inlet. So a lot of the water coming down the ditch from that, there's a driveway further up. A lot of that water is going into that catch basin, so that gets the water underground and over into the stream in a very simple fashion. The ditch and the culvert we're putting under the driveway is simply an overflow for that catch basin. So it's a secondary thing. I'm able to rebut and comment on some of the concerns that folks have if you want me to do that. I'll try to be very brief because this is running on. Ms. Grasso mentioned about condo docks. Condo docks are expensive to prepare. And so if we can't get this permitted this evening, then there's no need for condo docks. So they haven't been done because we don't even know if there's going to be a project. She brought up an interesting point, is that, these people are all taxpayers, as are all of us in the city. This will create 12 new taxpayers. And as this gentleman mentioned, these are not going to be inexpensive units. They're going to be probably expensive. I don't know how much, but they will be all paying taxes on that. So I think that's another way to balance out the impact on the city. The idea of coordinating with a contractor that Mr. Beal mentioned, I think is a great idea. And I think doing that will help give the neighbors a point of contact as to express concerns about traffic. Maybe there's one radical driver that comes around too fast. You speak to the contractor can take care of that. Coordinating with school pickup and drop off, I think, is a very important point. That's something I hadn't thought of, and I appreciate. I get a lot of good feedback from you guys and from the council, or from the audience as well, as far as I think that's a very important thing to consider. So we'll bring that in, because the junior high is just down the road as well. One thing we can do about the street parking is during construction, the contractor has the authority to say all of his crew has to park off-site somewhere. They can't park on the street, and I think that's a reasonable concession. By and large, when they're working on site, they, don't need their vehicles. Once the area is cleaned out and they're working on the property, that's a different story. But at least during the excavation phase, there's no need to have vehicles parked on the street at that point. The stormwater has been a constant concern, and I think repairing the ditch to making it the way it should have been made when it was originally built, and I think do think of the solar panels uphill that have increased the runoff some. So maybe when it was built, it was adequate. It certainly is not now, because we had, I think I looked up 1.7 inches of rain on Thursday, and that's even less than a 2-year storm. So that, plus the runoff, was spilling all over the road. So we need to resolve that. And I think that is something that, repairing the runoff is something that we can do early on in the project. Before we do the excavation on the hillside, repair the ditch, and make sure we have stormwater not going back into the street is a very easy, reasonable thing to do. So, yeah, that's all I
Jeff,
have.
I have a question. What is the proposed capacity of the ditch? What is the maximum stormwater, as in inches of rainfall per hour?
It would easily accommodate a 5-inch storm.
5-inch.
The way hydraulic models work, it's 5 inches over the course of 24 hours. That's still a very intense storm. So the ditch would more than accommodate the 25-year storm going down through there. Right now, the ditch is 2 feet wide and a foot deep. That's obviously too little. Probably what I would recommend for a ditch in that area would be a V-bottom or a parabolic ditch that would be at least 4 or 5 feet wide at the top and 2.5, 3 feet deep at from the top. It would give you tremendous more capacity. It doesn't have to be super large here, because there's quite an angle, and when there's a steep angle in the ditch, it can carry more water than a flatter ditch could. So
The ditch that you were just proposing, would that be the entire frontage of the property, or what is the length of that?
probably from the driveway down to where, and this is where I'd have to get permission from the city engineer. This is all in the city right away. So we would go down to where the natural stream goes down through the woods. So that's beyond our property, actually.
Would it be possible to extend that ditch up the?
I don't believe there's a need to, because what I saw when the storm was there before is a lot of that, the storm uphill of where the driveway will go in here is in much better shape than the ditch downhill from that. So I believe, if need, we could extend it further up to the property line, but I don't want to re-ditch the whole side of the street. I want to do as much as we need to, but
Is the proposed ditch improvement, is that rock lined, or what is the material?
it could be riprap lined. I would prefer to do it just with natural vegetation, maybe reinforced vegetation, because riprap tends to pick up a lot of sand in between the stones, and it clogs up, and it becomes a problem for maintenance later on, whereas a grass ditch.
When you say riprap, what is the size aggregate? What are you talking about?
Size of my fist, probably.
Like two, okay.
Yeah, they call it 6-inch or 8-inch
aggregate.
stones.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the angular stone that you'd put in there. Yeah.
If it's grass lined or vegetative lined, who would maintain that? Who would cut that so it doesn't grow?
It's in the city right of way. I generally, if you'd want to keep woody, keep trees from growing in there and keep the weeds down some. So I don't know what the city does in that area now. I don't think they do anything. So in front of the property here may be something that we could handle, that we, the owners, could maintain.
I get a little bit concerned about the volume or velocity of the water picking up any of that soil or vegetative and washing it further down.
There are design guidelines, and I would have to go through and do the calculations. So one way you can do that is do reinforced turf, which is, it looks like grass, but it has a plastic grid that holds it in place. And so, they use that a lot of places.
Okay.
So there are reasonable engineering solutions to all those questions.
Is that in the findings of fact, Dan? Any of that ditch improvement? Is that,
One of the questions that Andy had was that we have it noted on the plan, and you'll notice right over here, sir, could you move your head down just a little? There. Whoops, I got the wrong button here. There, I'm good. Thank you. Yeah, you're right in front of where it was. Right here, I've got a note on here, regrade ditch to drain. And that is this little note right here. So there is clearly the intent to do that, but this will be working with the city engineer to find a reasonable solution.
Is there a time frame? Can we say like improve the ditch within a year, or what is there? Oh, sorry. Is there a time
if we
frame?
could do it, I would say prior to construction.
Okay.
Because if it's not approved, and if we can't build it, then
Can we say prior to excavation?
prior to, that's the first step, is excavating there. So prior to other excavation, repair that ditch.
Okay.
And, during the course of when the ditch is there, we'd probably put some of these little stone check dams, the little stone.
The black fabric, is that?
No, these are just piles of rock, essentially, that goes across and slows it down a little bit. So we would probably put those in until we get a good vegetation growth going.
If when you're excavating this summer, do you foresee, or is there a way to stop any runoff of like soil or any of that loose silt material?
As we're excavating, I think this is something that is in the, right here we've got, it says BMB, bark mulch berms. So those will be installed sort of incrementally as you go back in. Those are, DEP likes them better than silt fences, because silt fences rarely get installed properly, and the maintenance is a pain in the butt. These bark mulch berms are literally that. Just take a bunch of bark mulch, put a pile of it, and it gets dirty and traps a lot of the sediment running off the site. So that's our intent, is to minimize the amount of sediment running off the site.
Following up on Tom's questions, just for sake of argument, let's say that there's been a miscalculation as to the capacity that your ditches are going to be able to maintain.
We can make them bigger.
And as you mentioned, you've got some engineering solutions. Let's say the engineering solution is the $50,000 engineering solution. Who pays that?
The developer will pay that, but it's
I
part
mean, how long? I mean, that's following up on what Tom had mentioned. We have a statute that says, or a condition that it's going to be 2 years or 3 years?
Generally, there's a warranty of work for 1 year. Again, this is in the public right-of-way, so we're improving the public right-of-way by creating proper ditches in it.
Well, that's the key word, proper. So let's say that your best estimate right now is 4.5, 5.5 inch at the top ditch. Let's say it should have been 7.5, 8.5 because of the capacity. And let's say that happens in 3 years. I mean, are us in this room, the taxpayer, is going to have to foot a bill of, let's say it's 50,000.
I think if we get suitable ditches in there the first time, I don't want to redo them, but that is an opportunity. We could redo it, but if you over-designed it at the first part, up front, it's easier to do the construction once and done. So if all else fails, and the other thing is if there's additional upstream runoff that's going in there, if something else is developed later on, then they bear some responsibility into maintaining that. But this will be sized properly for our project.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm all set.
Thank you. Andy, maybe this is a question for you. Sorry. Don't mean to put you on the spot. Is there a way for us to, I mean, I think you had concerns about the amount of dump hauls that would have to be brought out to, just reading your letter. But is there a way to sort of manage that in the times that the dump trucks could go out onto the street to avoid schools? Or is that something that like you could work with them on?
If you tried to limit the truck traffic around schools in a certain time, saying you can't truck, but I don't even know what time schools are there, but I mean, generally, like Jeff said, 7 to 5 or whatever our ordinance is, this increases the cost of the project. I'm sure some people don't care about that, but I'm sure the developer does. But
yeah,
I mean, there's nothing saying you could not, that you couldn't do that. They're going to trucks are going to come down. I don't know. I'm just guessing that trucks are probably going to go down John Ave to
West River
Road. I mean, there's like 30,000 yards, so it's got to go someplace.
Yeah.
We've taken a lot at the police at the shooting range down there. I don't think we can take any more fill down there. We've probably taken 150,000 yards of material down there, but I don't know where it's going to go. They're going to be stuck right in that same traffic as everybody else. If there's a backup of traffic, there's going to be dump trucks in that same backup of traffic, just like everybody dropping kids off and all this stuff. I mean, the trucks aren't going to zoom around, stop traffic. It's not saying it hasn't happened before in life, but I don't see it happen. As far as how quick this. I agree with your math. That sounded about right, but you don't know who's going to do the earthwork yet, right? No. Are they going to take H.E. Sargent, who owns 95 dump trucks, or are they going to take a local somebody with 4 dump trucks? It's hard to judge on that. So.
And then my other question is on the ditches and the draining. Is that something you would inspect like along the way to make sure that it is functioning properly?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and I think, and I've gone over with Jeff, and we've been on the site. In my opinion, some of the ditches just filled in from winter sand, and it needs to be cleaned back out. But the ditch is bigger. The ditch should handle more than the project comes in. Whether we get, if we get a massive rains like we had, in 2024, it wasn't bad at all. It was actually fairly dry. Because I can tell because my phone didn't ring much. In 23, I got called a lot. I mean, there was always calls about drainage problems and drainage problems and drainage problems, and there was a lot of water running everywhere. Here, I think the city can go up above. I noticed on Evergreen Drive, same thing up above. There's some ditches that are filled in, And maybe I can get, I mean, I don't control Public Works, but if we can get them to clean some of that stuff out, that will help some of the water too.
Okay.
And some of it runs down the road because the curbings, there's two different types of drainage systems there. I don't know who designed it, but there's there's curbing on the road, which keeps the water in the road, that's how it works, into the catch basins. But there's catch basins in the ditch too, so I'm not exactly sure who designed that, but there's kind of an odd setup there, but I think if the city, if we can go up above the property and clean up above the driveways and stuff, maybe we can take care of, we can minimize, take care of the existing problem, or don't take care of it, but minimize it or whatever, so.
Great, thank you. Any other questions?
Could I just ask
Yep.
one simple question?
Yeah, but you have to come to the mic, I'm sorry.
Maureen Anderson, 414 Evergreen Drive, and it's for Jeff?
Yes.
Okay. Is there any other site, space in the Waterville area that Mamie could have her dream? This sounds so complicated.
I'm sorry, like, that's not really we're not talking about hypotheticals. Like, it's not something that we can get into here.
Well, I'm
sorry.
asking him.
Well, I understand, but that's not part of the site application, and we can't.
There's no other property that she owns that is capable of this.
She owns that land?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Thank you. Very quick. Can't talk too much here.
Very quick. Are we talking about a rental or are we talking about a condo?
Okay, I think it's condos. Yes, Jeff?
No, it is condos.
Okay, these are condos.
Owner occupied then? They're actually going to...
They are
Yes,
condominiums.
just like,
Originally were put forth as rentals.
I know. I was misspoken the last time.
That's a big difference.
Because as a condo community, I thought.
Yeah, can, they have to keep the property up.
right, it's condos just like all of the other surrounding.
$250 a month.
It means they're not rented out by Miami, they are owned.
They are owned by individual owners.
Okay. Findings and facts, I guess, Ann? Yep. Yes, please. It's not like, internet slow or something? Okay, it's not just me. Okay. All right, Jeff, item number 1, the development will not result in undue water or air pollution.
True.
Item number 2, sufficient water available for the reasonable foreseeable needs.
True.
Item number 3, will not cause unreasonable soil erosion or reduction in the capacity of the land to hold water.
True.
Item number 4, the development will not cause unreasonable highway or public road congestion.
True.
Item number 5, the development. Item number 5, the development will provide for adequate solid waste disposal.
True.
Item number 6, the development will not cause an unreasonable burden on the ability of the municipality to dispose of sewage.
True.
Item number 7, the development will not have an undue adverse effect on the scenic or natural beauty of the area.
True.
Number 8, the development is in conformance with zoning.
True.
And number 9, the developer has adequate financial and technical capacity to meet the above stated standards.
True.
Have you reviewed all of the,
I have.
from
all
the fire department, et
conditions. Yep.
cetera?
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody on the planning board have anything else that they wish to add? I'm wondering, Dave, are you taking notes? Are you the note taker on the thingy?
If there are any additional conditions.
I am wondering if it would be helpful on the findings and facts just to clarify about the new ditch and the drainage that we have on the plan, just to like cover our bases. But, so I would motion to put language on there about that. What is it that you did? I can't read from
The
here.
regrading of the
Yeah,
ditch?
yeah.
So would we be stating we want that done prior
Prior.
to any other excavation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you think that that's reasonable, Jeff?
Yes.
Okay.
All right.
So I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favor?
Motion to approve this?
No, it's the
No.
motion to add a condition to the findings and facts that the ditch regrading will be done prior to, all those in favor?
Well, just one, could we add some specifics to it, or is that, because he mentioned specifically parabolic ditch 4 to 5 feet wide at top, 2 to 3 feet depth from the driveway down to the natural stream.
I would prefer to leave that off because that was just off the top of my head. I can do real calculations that would ensure that the ditch would be adequate.
Okay.
We could put in there
To
that
be inspected
approved by the city engineer.
Yeah.
Is that adequate? Yeah. Okay. Would anybody like to add anything else?
Is there any way to,
I have a question for the engineer, possibly.
Okay.
Is that possible? How many utility poles will be needed to bring utilities to your site? One or two? And street lights, possible.
I think it's 2. We aren't doing street lights. We're just doing lights on the front of the building.
Okay, got it.
But, whoops, if I could. I'll tell you how many lights are going to go in there. Sir, if you could bend down again, please. Thank you. It looks like we have 2. There's one in on the property, well, there's one out by the street here, and then it's going underground, and it'll be underground electric in on the property.
Oh, so there'll be one more pole, is that what you're saying?
We're putting one pole in front of the unit, and then from there it'll drop down and go underground into the units, into transformers.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. Anything?
so I was, is it possible to ask, put something in there about the requirement to work with the community on safety associated with the travel of the dump trucks? Is that, or is that just common sense?
That's an Ann question, I think.
That's an Andy question.
That's an Andy question.
What was that?
I would like to see the contractor work very closely with the community and provide a forum for the community to get their concerns addressed. You know, for example, if the dump trucks are going too fast, but is there anything that we can require the contractor to work closely with the community on the transportation
With the
issues?
language in there, I'm not sure exactly how to word that, but, I mean, certainly can add that in.
Could we have that, perhaps the developer will disclose the time frame that trucks will be? You know, like, would that be helpful? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean-
It seems a little unorthodox, but,
Typical project like that, you're gonna start off with a schedule of work
Right.
and working hours. That's typically how it starts, and, I mean, we could you could say approved by the city engineer, if that's how you wanna word it.
a schedule of work approved by the
Yeah,
city engineer.
And,
Could we put in that the project will comply with all public safety requirements? I mean, that would probably cover everything, and speeding, vehicles, the congestion.
yeah, I mean, it should anyway by
Yeah.
law. but
Right, I feel like we don't need to.
It'd be kind of redundant.
Is there a possibility for a public pre-construction meeting that would be hosted by the contractor to provide the folks
That's
in the
probably a good
area?
idea. I mean, we've done it on, we did it on Main Street. Chimbo has done it on the bridge, some of these bigger projects and stuff. But there certainly could be a neighborhood meeting or whoever else wanted to attend it, I guess, also.
How would we get that in writing somewhere?
Well, I'm thinking, we could say something to the effect of the developer will assign a project manager that will be the primary point of contact for the community and will
Hold a pre-construction meeting with the public?
have
invite
regular
the public.
meetings with the community.
So who's going to write that?
I can write it.
Oh, thank you, David.
Do you want to make a motion for that amendment?
I'd make a motion to have David write what he just said.
I'll second that.
Can I sit down?
Yeah. Andy, you didn't realize how fun these planning board meetings were, did you? Yes, and Dave second. Are you wordsmithing the language, Dave?
I am
Okay.
in my head first.
Would you
I'm
mind-
probably going to type it, actually.
Okay. Would you mind repeating it so that we could vote on that once you have it?
Sure.
Thank you.
We're on the edge of our seat.
No pressure.
How about this? The developer will assign a project manager to be the primary point of contact for the community for the duration of the construction. The project manager will hold regular meetings with the community to provide updates and hear concerns.
Okay. So there's a motion and a second. All those in favor? Okay. Anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the findings and facts as amended.
I'll make the motion to approve the findings and facts as amended.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Yes.
This is approving the project. Opposed?
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Steve Dostie is requesting final plan review for 6,000 square foot restaurant to be constructed at 415 KMD. Is Mr. Dostie with us today? Come on up. Oh, Jeff's, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Let me ask if anybody's here for the mobile homes, and we could just postpone that.
Okay. Is anyone here for item number 8? The city council is requesting planning board recommendation concerning revisions to the zoning ordinance. Great. I motion that we postpone that to,
April, the April meeting.
what did we
April
say?
8th.
April 8th.
Second.
All those in favor?
So this is the, again, Jeff Allen from A. Hudson Engineers. This is the project on 415 KMD, and the applicant is proposing to put a restaurant in there. This is the same size building and the same location that was approved in 2022, I believe, for a natural food store. But we now have a restaurant that wants to go in there. So one thing we have done, it's about a 6,000 square foot restaurant with 375 square feet of other offices, storerooms, and stuff like that. We haven't really designed the restaurant yet because the contract is not signed for that, but the parking lot is 57 spaces, and we're estimating that we would need 55 spaces based on the size of the building and the number of tables we expect. It's in the commercial C zone, and it is a public way, but it's kind of a bad location for a road. If this is the Dunkin' Donuts building right up here at the top of the screen, and so this road going in there is now kind of overgrown with bushes. So the first thing to do will be to go in and trim back the bushes to expose the full width of the road. It's a full, 20 or 24 foot wide road with shoulders, and it's a public way.
It's not accepted by the city.
It is not? Okay. Okay. It's not accepted by the city. But it is, it has been constructed, and it did have the intent of having development on both sides of it. Dunkin' Donuts has actually right along here a guardrail so that people from going through their drive-through won't stray out onto this road. So it has not been used recently. There are 3 lots on this side of the road. The original restaurant that was there before was approved just on the front lot. Since then, Mr. Dosti has gone in and purchased another lot back in there so to enable a larger parking lot. So there is still one lot available, I believe, beyond the cul-de-sac back here. This one does have a full cul-de-sac for emergency vehicles to turn around. This is the size that we would have needed on the previous project. Be city water and sewer, and we've coordinated with the water and sewer department. Actually changed the design a little bit to make that more streamlined for them, and got approval from them. We've also received comments back from the city engineer approving this design as well. Guess I can answer any other questions. Yes, sir.
I was out there today checking out the site, and my daughter was with me, and she wanted to know what kind of restaurant it was going to be.
No lease has been signed yet. There are rumors floating around, but I will neither confirm or deny those. So until there's a contract signed, it's a restaurant. That's all I can say.
I had disclosed the last time we went through this here about the property in question. I disagree with you as to that being a bad location for the road. I put that road in.
Well, I'll tell you.
I didn't have any choice. I mean,
Yeah.
where Dunkin' Donut was, I had sold that property to Colebrook Saab.
Okay.
He decided not to build. He sold it to them, and I sold it to other side, to
Yeah.
Dr. Knopfel and a couple of other people.
Oh,
I had no choice. That's where the
stand
road's going to
corrected
go.
there.
Okay.
But
Brilliant road.
Yeah. It's a stunning road.
Thank you.
But one thing we noticed when I visited the site with the city engineer, when you're coming out at the end of that road, you look up KMD, and it's the crest of the hill right by the doctor's offices, the medical offices there, make it very difficult to see going up that way. Also, probably since you built this, there's the hotel has gone in and built they have a full intersection there with a stoplight. So the city engineer and I agreed that probably the safest maneuvering would be to have a right only coming out of this road. turning left, going across, I think it's 3 lanes of traffic there to get into the road to go up over the top of the hill, is not an easy movement. And so we're planning on posting a sign at the entrance, right turn only going out. We've all seen those signs, and we know how we react sometimes. But for safety's sake, that's the way I think it needs to be, is have that right turn only.
That wouldn't be the only one on KMD that has a right only. Down the street, Waterville Audiology.
And
they have-
McDonald's.
Yeah, and McDonald's,
That's the
yeah.
only one.
Yeah.
Take a right.
KMD is a major arterial street, and, you've got, if you hit the traffic just right, if there's people stopped there and there's nobody stopped here, yeah, you could zoop across there, no problem. But if it's 5 o'clock at night and everybody's heading out of town to Oakland or heading up to the ice cream shop, just thinking, then it's probably safer to have a right turn only going out of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Jeff? Okay. Findings and facts, Ann? Give me a lot of these tonight, Ann.
Volunteer again, Dave.
Holy moly.
Oh, sure. Thanks. I'm going to make a motion to read by number only. We've done it a couple of times.
I second. All those in favor? Okay. All right, Jeff. Item number 1.
True.
Item number 2.
True.
Item number 3.
True.
Item number 4.
True.
5.
True.
Item number 6.
True.
Item number 7.
True.
Item number 8.
True.
Item number 9.
True.
And then we have the conditions. Fire, sanitary. Have you reviewed them?
Yes.
Any questions?
No.
Members of the board, any further comments? I don't think I asked members of the public, sorry. Members of the public?
My name is Sandra Costrin, 11 Von Court, Waterville. My only concern about this is the increased development on KMD and the traffic. And now that you said, and I agree, right turn only, so that means then people are going to go down to Washington Street, and then they're going down Lincoln Street. And that's a lot of increased traffic down rather small streets that have 35-mile-an-hour speed limits, and traffic often moves at 50 to 60. My only comment.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, do you know how many trips approximately?
I don't recall if I did that calculation. Bear with me for a second.
While you're looking at your paperwork, the downside of the right turn and going down Lincoln Street is the increased traffic. But the upside is that if there is a lot of traffic, we've got a successful restaurant.
Right. I did not do a traffic calculation. It will be pretty variable. Or
There's
did I?
50 seats, you said? How many seats?
160.
160. And it's a sit-down restaurant?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or concerns? I'll entertain a motion to approve the findings and facts.
So moved.
Okay, let's get a second.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Thank you. Thank Yeah, I did bring, I'm sorry, I did bring the plans to sign over here.
Okay.
But I can pick those up at Ann's office anytime.
Okay, we'll sign them before we leave.
Okay.
Does that work okay?
Yeah. that'd be great.
The motion was Tom Nail.
Second?
Dave Johnson.
No one was opposed.
It was all in favor?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Last up, item number 7, 15 Washington LLC is requesting preliminary and final plan review.
Good evening, I'm Boyd Snowden, Snowden Consulting Engineers. I'm here representing the owners on the project. I'll get the plans open here.
Thank you.
Go right to the site plan, I think.
While you're looking at that, I just want to restate that when this first came before us, I had and I still have a conflict, and have recused myself because of my relationship with the developer, John Jabba.
So I think we were in here in front of you folks in December. Very, very, very preliminary plans at that point, more concept plans. We have completed the design at this point. And I'll go through some of the plans that the city engineer, we sent us Waterville Sewer District, Kennebec Water District. They've all reviewed and approved the project with some comments. And this is going to be phase 1, full build out. He's looking at 10 different building units, but for phase 1, we're looking at 5 units here. This is Washington Street right here. KMD is down here at the lower end. So you've got the 4 units here. You've got a 6 unit. They're staggered 6 unit, 5 unit, 6 unit, 5 unit. Then there's a 6 unit back out here on the cul-de-sac that we've gone through the review with the fire department and actually done a traffic, vehicle path analysis for them to make sure that they could get their ladder truck or their largest truck in and around that area. So what we have is we have parking, curbing along this side with a walkway, parking all along this side with handicap in the front of the units. There are basement units to all these, and I'll show that in the grading plan. There are walkways with stairs outside between each building to access those basement units. One here, one there, another one here. And this one, there's 2 different walkways with stairway to access the basement. Some of the buildings that had the space have porches for the first floor, decks. That is a 6 by 10 deck. There's 4 of them here for these units. There are decks on the back of these unit and this unit. These 2 units do not have any decks on them because of the close proximity to that bumped out section of the property line. So we didn't have enough room there for the setback. There'll be, I think it's 42 feet total paved width to start, and then when the second phase, if and when the second phase comes, full width, I think is like 62 or 63 feet wide, which is, typical for a double stacked parking lot. We do have a trash area up here. That's a fenced in area. This area up here is the 30-foot buffer, vegetated buffer area that's in the deed. We talked about that extensively in the last meeting in December. The only thing, phase 1, that we're looking at doing is, because of the screening requirement, because this is, even though it's residential, it's got a commercial flavor to it. So we had proposed this visual screening barrier for the abutters so that they can be shielded from headlights and things like that. We've proposed that along the property line. So those are tree plantings that the deed restriction does allow. It does allow plantings to go in there. We did put it in a line, basically to minimize the impact. I didn't want to have them going through the whole property and putting them through that and then disturbing the whole 30-foot. So we're going to put a hedgerow, figured with the arborvitae that we're looking at putting in there, it'll provide the most visual barrier, the most protection for the abutting landowners, which is why we propose that.
Is there a reason that they're right on the line instead of in the middle of that 30-foot?
So there's a drainage way in the middle of that 30-foot. I think it's probably the fill extension from when it was done in 1997 or before that. So what happens is you actually are elevated on this property. You go down into that drainage way, and then you start coming back up the other property. So if you put it in the middle,
Yeah.
the abutters aren't going to get the benefit.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So this shows the grading plan for the site here. Peek around your head, so you're good. So on this first phase, again, there's a curving on this side with a walkway. We've got a pitch coming in, a 2% grade coming in off Washington Street, and then there's a consistent 2% grade all the way through to the back of the cul-de-sac to hit this location where there's a low spot, and then it starts pitching back up at a 2% grade in the cul-de-sac area. We've got a diversion or a roadside ditch for this phase one being proposed to collect any runoff from, this is the center line, from there, getting it into this culvert, into the drainage system, and then out to a under-drain grass filter that we've designed here. John actually owns a piece, I'll show you on the next sheet. There's actually like a long, slender piece of property that goes, I don't know, 400 or 500 feet, maybe more, back off from this fill site. And that under-drain, one of the under-drain grass filters is being designed in that location. We've also got another under-drain grass filter designed here. And basically those under-drain grass filters, I'm sure you've dealt with them here before in the planning board. It's basically a way to collect the stormwater runoff. Anytime you put pavement, buildings, or anything on a site that's either vegetated, you're going to get an increased peak runoff rate. So these under-drain grass filters, basically what their purpose is to temporarily gain some storage volume to slow that water so then we can make sure we can meet the pre-development runoff conditions. So with the design that we've done, submitted all the information to the city engineer, we're actually less than the pre-development runoff rate, peak runoff rate for the 2, 10, and 25-year storm, 25-year storm being 5 inches, 5.2 inches, I think, in a 24-hour period. So these will be, what'll happen with these is when you get those significant storms, they'll fill with water, up to 18 inches of water, which is the maximum the DEP will allow with these type of systems. Then it'll percolate through. It's basically almost like a reverse septic system. It just kind of percolates down through to a collection system, perforated system, and then it slowly discharges. And we're able to, doing that, we're able to attenuate the peak runoff rates. And it also provides stormwater treatment, which if this does go to phase 2, this will be all under state DEP review. It'll be a stormwater permit, so we'll have to deal with that then. Right now, we've got just over 40,000 square feet of net impervious area as part of the project. So we do have a catch basin here that'll collect most of this runoff from the fronts of these buildings, and all this parking area here you see here that'll drain into that catch basin and that catch basin. This one is the one that feeds what I'm calling under-drain grass filter number 1, and that basically runs from this point to here. So basically the back of those 2 buildings will have that. 90% of the time it's going to look like a grass slope, a grass bed. Other than when you get these heavy rain events, they'll fill up, and then they have to, by design, they have to be draining in a 48-hour period. So then it'll go back to grass again. So they work very effectively. We've put them in many places across the state, and they're kind of the go-to for a lot of stormwater engineers like myself. So we're not doing, other than the arborvitae, we're not doing any work in this wooded buffer area at all, other than planting the arborvitae. And the arborvitae are only being proposed, as I said, because of provide a visual barrier for the abutters. We do have, go back here, that arborvitae is right along the property line, 3 feet off the property line, and then it extends all the way down this backside here as well to provide protection for, I think it's Sylvia Spear, I think, Charles and Sylvia Spear up here in this back. So we've extended that all the way down to basically to the edge of where their property, the property line cuts off to the south. So we wanted to make sure we shielded her from, the two of them also from headlights and things like that. This shows another view of that small tailpiece that I was talking about that John owns back here, and this is that under drain grass filter, the second one in that location. It's pretty tight, but it's a good use of space because you really can't develop it. So there'll be diversion ditches that take the water from the development and feed into that under drain grass filter, and then that has an outlet structure similar to what I was talking about before that'll eventually make it into this drainage way, this natural drainage way coming through there.
How deep will that be?
It can only be 18 inches.
Okay, same thing?
Yeah, same thing.
18 inches.
It's 2 feet with the berm,
Yep.
but it can only store 18 inches because the top of our outlet structure is 18 inches above the media.
Yep.
That's a DEP requirement. So.
Great.
Just going to show this real quickly. This is the part of the stormwater model that we do for all these projects. This is the pre-development condition. These are all subcatchment watersheds that we're showing where the water's flowing. Right now, this huge, I don't know, call it tan or whatever color that is, orange, and it runs everything over to the back northeast corner of the parcel and where it discharges from the parcel currently. Then the other one to the, over here, this drains to the roadside ditch. There are going to be some improvements to the roadside ditch here just because currently the ditch kind of directs the runoff onto 15 Washington LLC's property. Then it kind of comes back to the road again. So we'll define that ditch to keep it along the roadside so that it doesn't impact the development. So you've got that piece, so you've got a water analysis point here, water analysis point here, and then a water analysis point here on the southern end of the property, which is this golden one. So those are the 3 different subcatchment pre-development areas. And Jeff Allen was talking about the stormwater management system, and so these plans are used in coordination with our stormwater model to predict that, to make sure and to predict that the peak runoff rate from post-development won't exceed the pre-development. So all of these are based upon the grading, proposed grading. All of this right here is areas that's really, it's the wooded buffer up in here. So we segregate all these into different subcatchment areas that might drain to a culvert or a catch basin and basically show through that model how the stormwater migrates through the property, hits our under drain grass filters, and then discharges off property from our site. And again, all of our pre-development and post-development we have on the plan here, and it shows that in the 2, 10, and 25-year storms, we are below the pre-development level, which is where we want to be. We do have a proposed sewer extension coming up Washington Street. There's an existing manhole right in front of the McDonald's access driveway. And what we're looking at doing, they just paved this road, but I know, a couple years ago, I think it was, but yeah, John had talked to the city of Waterville at the time, and what we had told them is, we'll get off the road as quickly as we can, get onto the shoulder of the road, so we're not tearing up. It was just a shim coat, so there was no moratorium, but there's a lot of utilities on this side of the road that prohibit us from going up this side. There's fiber optics, there's water main, there's natural gas, and there's really nothing over here on this side of the road. So We're going to be fairly deep on this run, so we elected to bring our sewer up on that side. So we are going to be cutting across what used to be Family Medicine Associates, now it's Faith Development Corp's driveway there in the road right-of-way. We'll be going underneath the 24-inch culvert that we designed back in 2000, right, Jim? Years and years ago. We'll be going underneath that, underneath the water main, and then the last manhole is here before our entrance to the facility, and then we'll bring so this will all be public sewer taken over by the city Waterville Sewer District. We'll have to meet all their specifications, and they have to approve and air test all the system. And then once we come out of that manhole and into the property, then it becomes private developer owned from there on. This just shows some of the utilities. Again, that's the sewer coming in off the site. The gravity, everything is running this way from right to left, gravity-wise in the sewer. We've met with the water company. They got a 12-inch line up here. Basically, what we need to do is put 2-inch valves, two valves at the right-of-way. There'll be a 2-inch domestic and a 4-inch sprinkler line. That'll come into a mechanical room that's in this building, in one of these. That's why we kind of widen the walkway there. There'll be 2 doors, one door for the apartment, and the other door will be for the mechanical room and back. And I think that's where the electrical is going to come in as well, to that mechanical room. So what'll happen with the water company is the domestic and the sprinkler system feed will come in, they'll get metered, backflowed in that mechanical room, and then they'll come back out to feed all the different buildings. There'll be individual feeds for each building. Under phase 1, we'll have all these stubs, so we're not digging up brand new pavement if and when phase 2 ever happens. We'll be putting valves and caps on those with a 4x4 post just to locate those for future reference, so we don't have to hunt around for them later on. Exterior lighting, it's all full cutoff lights. I'll show you that in a minute. Transformer pads, all underground power through here. Again, there's a catch basin system that feeds to underground grass filter 1 here. There will be residential pump station units that'll be owner-owned. And basically what we've got it set up is we've got 2 different building units per pump station that'll pump the sewage basically from the basement. Because of the basement levels, we won't have enough elevation to get gravity to our gravity line. So we're going to have these small pump stations in there that'll pump it up to our gravity line, and then it'll flow down to Washington Street. There will be steps on the front of most of these entrances to the building just because of the grade change. You know, obviously the buildings are flat level and our pitch of the slope of the road is 2%. So we'll have some areas that might have 1 step, some areas that have 2 or 3 steps depending on the grades that we develop. And this is that catch basin. There's an inlet culvert here to a catch basin, then this outlet's here, and then goes that under drain grass filter number 2 that we just talked about. And this is the outlet structure for the under drain grass filter number 1. So just to kind of show you real quickly what that looks like. I'll show you this first, actually. This is a lighting plan done by Win Electric. Showing the foot candles and making sure it meets all the lighting standards, exterior. These are full cutoff lights, as I said. Excuse me, how high are the lights up on the buildings?
18 feet. 18 feet. They'll be with the wall packs, right, on the buildings, but then the light poles themselves. 18 feet, yeah. I'm sure it says it on there. I just don't remember what it is right offhand, but it sounds like 18 feet to the top of the lamp post. Only a couple things else I want to just kind of go through with you. This was the plan that we did for the fire department, taking the dimensions that they provided to make sure that we could show the vehicular path coming in with their largest truck, making sure we could get around that cul-de-sac, which obviously some of these lines represent like left tire, right tire front, and then left tire, right tire back. And in all areas, it was within our paved surface, so they were comfortable with getting around our site.
The only other thing I wanted to show you is the under drain grass filter that I was talking about. So basically, this under drain grass filter, as I said, is 18 inches max. The outlet structure can be no more than 18 inches above the top of the filter media. There's 18 inches of filter media. That's a combination of organics, sand, and loam. And then that's resting on top of 14 inches of crushed stone. And the crushed stone is where the perforated pipe is. So basically what happens is that stormwater fills up, collects. The system is sized to handle those large events, collects in that 18 inches, and then percolates down through, and then hits the outlet structure, and then goes out to daylight. So that's what slows the runoff and helps attenuate the peak issues. So I think that summarizes everything I have. I don't know if you have any questions for me. I have them. I just don't know if I have them with me. Elevations of what the buildings are going to look like. Do you know what, like, you can talk about like the siding of the buildings, things like that? I don't know. They're basically a two-story. There'll be a two-story in the front on the roadside, and then, the basement in the back will be the third story. But we have them. I just don't have any with me right now, unfortunately. So I more deal with the site stuff and the grading and the stormwater. So. Yep. It was an attractive building when John showed it to me. I just don't have it in front of me. That's all. So.
Boyd?
Yes.
What is the soil composition of this area that you're proposing to build these houses on? Is it sandy, loam? What is it like?
It's all fill, but we're going to be, because they all have basement units, we're going to be down to natural material, which in this case is Woodbridge, which is very fine stone, very fine sandy, stony loam.
And that excavation, will that be taken off site, or is that being just moved around, or?
It's going to be a net cut site. It'll definitely be materials coming out. I mean, I tried to initially in the design have more of a gradual taper, kind of push the high spot of the development toward the middle of the property to balance the cut fills. But the problem is, by doing that, I created an issue for me on the property line to the south where I couldn't get the grading to work. So I had to come off the Washington Street and then do a consistent 2% grade down. So there'll be a lot of materials being removed from this property.
On the south side of the property, I saw on the first slide that there are a concrete block retaining wall.
Yes, there are.
Are those bin blocks or wall blocks? What kind of blocks?
What I was thinking about is trying to think of the segmental blocks, but not like the larger segmental blocks.
Like 6 foot?
Yeah, like a 4x2 or something like that. So they're rugged, and you can cover a lot of area, and they're fairly attractive looking. So
Is the block going right on the property line? I'm thinking about the southwest corner, closest to like the AAA. Is that block going right on the line? Because I see that the unit is going 3 feet back from the property line.
Yes, yeah. So the unit itself is, I think, is like 5 or 6 feet, as I recall, back. I'll see if I can get to that plan. Migrating my way to it.
There's a note on the.
Yeah. So this is a 3-foot setback right there.
So where's the wall block on that?
This block right here, which is right on the property line.
Okay.
And then I've got block over here. This whole run.
Okay.
Right to there, right to that location. So that's all block as well. That basically, it's the toe of the fill of that underground grass filter. We're going to marry that into that block.
What is the height of the wall block from the below grade? Is it, we're talking about feet?
I think it's like 2 feet.
It's like a single block?
It'll be a single block in most cases. I don't believe there were anything higher than that.
Are you concerned at all about the hydraulic pressure of the water in that underground soil filter, say on like a winter's day, if you have a runoff and then a freeze, putting lateral pressure on that retaining wall since it's so close?
Not really, because you got like about, I don't have my scale, I don't have any way to scale it, but you've got probably 10 or 12 feet, if not
Okay.
15 feet there between that wall. And again, it's on the other side of the berm, so it's not like it's within the pond, it's on the other side, on the back side of the berm. So most of that, because it's a perforated drainage system, that is going to drain fairly quickly. So it's not like there's going to be a wet pond that's going to be there for, years, basically.
When you say perforated, is there going to be like a perforated material, like a black material, like a soil material?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll
Soil
be,
screen.
these will all have to be lined because when you get to be a certain distance close to the groundwater table, they have to line it. So they'll have a liner in the bottom. They'll have crushed stone. They'll have perforated PVC pipe, a couple different runs of them. And then the meteor and the crushed stone finished and the meteor on top of that. So basically, as the water's percolating down through, those perforated drains are taking that water already, right?
And it's moving that water out of that soil filter, it's moving it laterally to the southeast, is that?
To more to the east, to this structure right here.
Okay.
That's where those drainage pipes will drain into. And then there's an outlet pipe comes out of that structure that daylights over here with a plunge pool.
And the plunge pool, is that continuing the water to flow further east towards that larger?
It's just this little thing, and basically it's an erosion control protective thing. So what happens is when you get a heavy storm, let's say a 5.2 inch 25-year storm event, water, that'll exceed what can percolate through that media. So the outlet structure is designed to take up that excess in that storm event. And then if you have a really excessive storm, 100-year storm event, we've got a third requirement that DEP requires, which is an emergency riprap spillway, which is, you were talking about that earlier. And that'll provide, not only the perforated treatment for those big storm events, it'll provide the outlet structure overflow. And if it exceeds both of those, then it'll provide another means to get off from the site from the emergency spillway.
And further southeast from that retaining wall, is that just like that wet area that runs back towards Seton?
This way?
Yeah, it just keeps running. Yeah, it's like a low area that runs back towards.
Yep, I think let me see if I can get that plan back up, because it does show the LiDAR contours show pretty well what's happening out there. There is sorry. You're good. You're good. I just have to look. I just have to peek around here to get to those zoom. So these are the LiDAR contours. So generally the water flow is coming in this direction. There is a fairly significant drainage channel based on the LiDAR contours that comes through the Spears property, looks like, and then cuts right across beyond where we're going.
Okay.
And this is all, I'm sure that's either a stream channel or a pretty significant volume of water that comes through there, but we're not getting into anywhere near that. So.
And the other question I had was all the way on the southwest corner, closest to Washington Street, that building that's closest to the road, is that building going to be roughly at grade with Washington Street? Is that?
Let me look at the grading plan to tell you. So the elevation of that first floor is 297.57, and this is 295 right here. So it's 2.5 feet above Washington Street right there.
Is there any bollard or barrier that would prevent a vehicle or truck from leaving the road surface and crashing into that building since it's so close?
Yep. So I have because of the grading, I didn't want, when you're dealing with stormwater, you only want to treat what's on your property, right? You don't want to treat off-site runoff because you wouldn't be able to size them correctly. It'd be too oversized. So because of that, I was talking earlier about doing some ditch work on the roadside and basically defining that ditch. Right now, it kind of comes off into John's property here in this corner and then kind of comes back to a culvert over here on the Pierce's property. So what we're going to be doing is we're actually defining that ditch, relocating and upsizing the culvert per the request of the city engineer from a 15-inch to an 18-inch. And we've actually created a berm along that edge. So basically, which is right here, and it goes up here. So basically, it's driving this water, keeping it within the road right away instead of spilling onto us. And I think that berm will provide some natural protection from somebody just, coming off the road. So.
Is there any protection from headlights coming in the windows?
I don't know, I can't remember, John, how many windows there are on that side of the building for the,
There's 6 windows on that side.
yeah. I think it's just, you have to get shades or something, you know, to get those.
And it wasn't shown in the site plan, but how close is the existing parking lot on the AAA on the south side, south of the retaining wall? How is that existing asphalt asphalt parking lot? Does that go right up to the retaining wall?
Well, I'm sorry.
On the south side.
Where are you talking about?
South of the wall block, right there. Basically, there's like the AAA, the commercial building to the
Okay.
south.
Yep, this is their existing pavement right
Okay.
here, and those are the existing light poles.
Yeah.
And where our property line is, I'm going to guess, 6, 8 feet or so beyond those, you know, into the, up north of those. So, and obviously, as you get closer to Washington Street, it gets even more than that. Just to give a frame of reference, the buildings are 32 feet wide. So if that's 32 feet wide, that's got to be at least 8 or 10 feet right there, and it's probably 15 feet or so here on that side, maybe 12 or 15, so. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Boyd? Yeah, members of the public.
I'm Harry Veo. I live at 3 Vaughan Court, and I'm the president of the Lincoln Green Condo Owners Association. And just want to get a clarification. Last year, the association granted an easement to 15 Washington to connect to a sewer line that passes through our property. Do I understand correctly that you will not be making use of that easement? That is correct.
And you'll get that, in our agreement, you'll get that back. If I don't use it within, I think it's a 2-year period that we drafted up, that'll just go back to you and that easement will go away.
Okay, that's my understanding too. Thank you.
Okay.
I had a
Go ahead.
Clarification questions. I'm not trying to negate this whole thing at all, because it's such an improvement over the previous proposal, but I do have some questions. First of all, I'm Sylvia Spear. I live at 750 Lincoln Street, and the property drops right onto my property. So, and also, if my husband were still alive, and he died 2 years ago, he would answer these questions. So you'll have to forgive me for my ignorance. But I'm concerned because there's a sewer, easement that goes across that.
We don't have that anymore, Sylvia. We're now going out to Washington Street, so we're not going out.
Okay, that takes care of that issue. Okay, as far as trees are concerned, because I'm worried about lights coming from the cars on the cul-de-sac, and I'd like to see some really good heavy-duty trees. I know arborvitae, I'm gonna be dead before that gets big enough.
They grow, Sylvia, they're gonna be planted, they're gonna be 5 or 6 feet tall when they're planted, and they grow 3 to 5 feet a year. That's what
I'm thinking about the ones at my son's house. He lives over on Broadway, and his didn't grow that fast. So that's what I'm concerned about. I don't want to see headlights because it goes right down into my property and goes right, I mean, I can see it right through my windows.
The good thing about yours, Sylvia, is the property, there's a building at the end of the lot, which will block most of, before the
You think
trees
that will
will come in.
happen?
So that house, which is 80 feet long, will block most of the headlights coming down in that direction.
Okay, and the other thing is the lights that you have outside are the ones that look down, they don't go out over the whole area? The new ones, yeah. Okay, so that takes care of that question. And as far as the trees, you think the arborvitae is really gonna do that?
That's what we were told would be the best opportunity.
I'll tell you, the way trees die around there, I'm not counting on it, because we've lost a lot of trees.
I'll come out and see.
Okay. And also, I'm concerned about the drainage, because as you well know, there is a swale that goes between my property and my grandson's property, and then it goes down, there's a stream that goes behind it, which is, well, it goes, you know, down here where the restaurant was going to be talking about. And I'm just wondering about protection from any drainage, because you're saying you've got this system set up, but what if it does overflow onto my property? I have gardens down there and everything else. I mean, you know, I don't want to lose that stuff.
I think I can answer that question for you. I think if I pull that other plan up, so that everything is heading from your property, kind of headed southeasterly. So anything from our development, when it drains from this property, is going to also head in that southeasterly direction. So I don't know where your gardens are.
Yeah, well, they're sort of, well, I have some in-the-ground raised beds, and I have some raised beds. But the ones that I'm concerned about would be the ones down below. And also, we had a path that went out back towards the stream and everything, and I just don't want to see all of that washed out.
Sure. I don't think, and I'm assuming your gardens are up near your house, not down,
That's
not
right.
down in the woods.
They're not back where that property cuts down. But I'm just concerned, because my lawn is soupy, I can't get out there and work on it. That's a concern that I have.
And that's something that John had talked about, and unfortunately with the vegetative buffer, kind of limited what he could do, and that's when they put the fill in back in pre-97.
I know, and we had to have them pull it back because it went onto our property. You know that
It's
story.
right at the corner of that property. I mean, it's right at that corner where it dumps onto your property, so I know right where you're
You know
talking
what I'm
about.
talking about, yeah.
So, John has talked in the planning board meetings, he's talked to me a number of times about, he wants to work with you folks in any way that because he knows it's a drainage issue. He talked to a couple of the different abutters up there, but under phase one, we're not doing anything in that buffer, but at some point down the road, plantings or discussions with you folks, I'm sure something can be worked out to deal with the drainage issue you're already dealing with.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to make anything worse.
Yeah, well, that's the thing that I'm concerned about, because I just want to keep our property pretty much as it is. I mean, we lose trees and everything, and that's made a big difference, but that's got nothing to do with you guys.
I will tell you, under phase one, all of the runoff from the whole development that is being developed, pavement, buildings, all runs to the south of the property.
So that means
We're
it's going to
not
run towards
sending
KMD.
Yeah, if anything, you should see either no change or a reduction on the north side. Because everything we have, in order to get that treated, we couldn't put a system in that vegetative buffer.
Right.
So everything had to go on the southern part. So everything literally is being collected by catch basins, the drainage system, and forced to the southern edge of the property. So
Yeah, I've been
I'm not going to promise you're going to see less water, but you may.
You might not
You
see
may.
as much.
You may.
Yeah.
It'll be either the same or better, but it won't be worse.
Well, this is something I've been really worried about, because I didn't want the drainage coming down, and, because we've already got those blocks that look like a prison, except when the trees get their leaves on them, then I don't see it anymore. But right now, I see that whole wall, and it's like a prison. That's all I can think of, is Alcatraz or something.
You mean the slope or the fill?
Well, where those apartment houses are, and they put them in, they put that big wall there.
Okay.
And it's not very attractive.
Yeah.
But anyways, that was that one. And then, the other thing is, I don't know, is there any way you can abate noise?
It's a residential neighborhood, so it's not
But
like
I'm
it's...
used to quiet.
Yeah.
I have two great-granddaughters, 14 and 15, and they're very quiet. And the other neighbors I don't even know, so.
If I said anything to you, I probably would be not being truthful with you that we can mandate noise. But it is a residential neighbor, it's a residential use in a residential neighborhood, so it's not like he's putting in a Walmart where you're gonna be,
Right. Well, I was just thinking if there was anything at all that you could do.
Well, I think the arborvitae that were proposed along the property line, so that has two purposes. One, it provides a barrier for the headlights, things like that.
Yeah.
But when that grows, and it fills in, it will provide sound waves not easily able to get through them. So that should be some benefit. Can go up and around it, you know what I mean, but
Now,
it'll be
if
some
we
benefit.
should have a problem with kids being around, is there any chance of a fence being put up there to keep kids from coming down onto our property?
I second that notion.
Absolutely. There should be a fence
I would
put
like
on
to
there.
see that if possible, because they could just slide down that hill. It's a great place for sleds, and they slide down that.
Keep on going, right?
So anyway, but those are my concerns, and it's a lot less than it was the last time you guys made a proposal. Believe me, a lot less. So, okay, thank you very much for your time and patience.
Thank you, Sylvia.
My name is Dan Dubois. I own 800 Lincoln Street, and I have a couple concerns about the project. First of all, I agree with Mrs. Spear that it would be nice to have a fence instead of some shrubbery that might not be maintained and die off. And secondly, I'm concerned about the contaminated soils in the property. I know the people that filled the property in with several old buildings and 2 gas stations, and I'd like to see all the excavated soils removed from site instead of leveled out on the property itself. I have a private water supply, and I think I have some neighbors that have private water supplies, and we're concerned about contamination.
Thank you.
Okay.
You say you were Dan Dubois?
Yeah. How you been, Tom?
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Dan does have some very nice property on Lincoln Street.
Would you all prefer the fence on the back or the fence all the way around in place of an arborvitae?
We would prefer to have the fence all the way around, maybe an 8-foot vinyl fence or something like that.
Okay.
It would be nice to keep the kids off our properties. I have several old senior citizens that are all widows, and we'd like to have the privacy. We don't need the lights, and we don't think the vegetated mat or whatever they're putting in there, if it dies off, it might not get maintained or anything either, so a fence would probably.
They've already cut all the trees down further upstairs anyway, they kind of did that real quick early, so if we had
Yeah.
a fence.
I would like to talk about that. There's a deed restriction that I thought was supposed to maintain a 30-foot natural vegetation barrier, and I went by the day, and they cut down a lot in the fall, and they cut down more in the spring. So I thought that was a restriction to keep that as natural vegetation. So
There was discussion, and plan got sent around in an email in November. There was some cutting that stopped, and no other cutting has taken place since John was notified by the planning board by Ann about cutting. So I'm not sure what cutting you're referring to this spring, but there has been none.
there was one pile of debris when I was there in the fall, and now there's 2 big piles. So I don't know. I'm just saying that regardless of that, there wasn't supposed to be any cutting, according to the deed, the restrictions. So how is that going to be protected in the future?
So we had a legal opinion drafted on that. We're not
Boyd, you
doing
have to come up
anything-
to the
we're not doing
microphone.
anything in-
Boyd, I'm sorry, you have to come up to the microphone.
So, we're not, one of the things I said at the beginning here was we're not proposing anything other than arborvitae in that vegetative buffer. So what happened in the past or before November or whatever, there is no more cutting or no more grading or anything else going in under phase 1 on this project. So, we've had a legal opinion. John has had his attorney look at this as far as what he can and can't do. It does talk about able to go in and clean things up and manage the area. That could be argued. What does that mean? So we chose under this phase 1 to not even deal with it, to be honest with you. We're just going to leave that vegetative buffer as in its current condition, and other than the arborvitae to provide the screening.
I'm just, did you guys ask at all about, I mean, a fence isn't natural or vegetative, so I'm guessing a fence would not really meet the deed restriction?
Probably not, because it's not a vegetative,
Right.
You know, he can plant trees, he can go in and clear like down trees, things like that, but I don't think there's any, I don't recall anything mentioned in there about putting a fence in.
Right.
The concern I would have for a fence, and Dan and I had a great conversation a couple weeks ago when he called me about this. This is a kind of a strange lot configuration in that this whole area where we're developing is where the fill was placed back in pre-97. You know, you look at Google Earth, you can see when this was all happening at that time. The terrain does drop off significantly
down close to the property line. So my concern, I guess, is when I look at an arborvitae that can grow 15 or 20 feet tall, you know, when you've got these low areas in here, that's eventually going to provide more protection. I think than a fence would. Like if you look at the elevation down here, that's 285. Our elevation here on the cul-de-sac is 291. So 6 feet above that. So basically, if you have a 6 or an 8 foot fence on that back side, I think the headlights are just going to shine right over the top of it. So I really do feel there's a benefit now that it doesn't get into the trespassing thing. I don't really know, you know, what can be done as far as that, because arborvitaes aren't going to really provide any restriction for trespassing for people coming, kids or whatever, coming onto their property. But I really do believe that the higher arborvitae in this case will provide more of a benefit to the abutters than a fence would. If we could put a fence in that 30-foot area, then a fence would provide. So.
When will they be planted? Before or after the project?
So they can really be planted, Dan, at any time because we're not doing anything in that buffer. So they could be
The sooner
planted.
you plant them, the faster they'll grow, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow.
Well, I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, but it certainly could be early on.
Should be early on.
We can do it early on in the process of when the development starts for sure, beforehand, some expense that we have into the project, for sure. After we've got to get the financing done, which we need to get the permitting done. But it can be the first thing that we do before we put the shovel in the
I know
ground.
you gotta cut them after you plant them.
Am I gonna cut them?
They gotta be cut down after you plant them, like
Can't cut 'em?
cleaned up.
We can't cut
Well,
them. We won't.
Will they be maintained if they die off?
Yeah, we'll certainly have something that, you know, we can agree to that, maintaining it, but no, we're not gonna cut them once we put it in.
So I can tell you that the planning board, I don't want to speak for the planning board, but the planning board's approval will be contingent upon the plan they're seeing here. So if those arborvitae are listed as a stipulation of your permit, if somebody were to go cut them down, then the code enforcement could come back out and say, you need to replant them because they have to be there because they're screening, you know, they're for screening purposes for the abutters. So
What about the contaminated soil? Will they be removed from the site?
it is going to be mostly a net cut site because there's so much material that, because of the grades, I have to remove so much of the material and it'll be trucked off. There will be some, I'm sure, material that we're going to be using to kind of regrade around there. We will have SW Cole as part of the construction. When they dig for the foundation, one of the things I think the code enforcement officer and the city engineer wanted was additional test pits where the buildings are going to go. So what we've talked about is when the excavation occurs for each building, SW Cole will come out, they'll be able to tell contaminated soil, things like that, and make sure that that gets, you know, I don't think John's going to want contaminated soil near those residential buildings either, you know, so they can, SW Cole can provide us some guidance with that when they're on site doing their verification for the foundation. So, but there is going to be a lot of material moved off the site. I don't have an exact volume or quantity, but it'll be significant. So.
Boyd, I have to disagree with you about the arborvitae being like a better buffer than a fence.
Okay.
I mean,
Fair enough.
I've sat on this planning board for far too long to know from other developments how just having arborvitae has not been enough to stop the headlights.
Thank you.
So, I mean, I also don't know that I would consider that to be the natural buffer. It's no different than putting in a fence. Like in our ordinance, we say arborvitae or the fence, basically, you know, like it's not really in the spirit of what that 30-foot buffer is. I don't think that the arborvitae are a replacement for the trees that were cut. But
Well, the arborvitae were proposed strictly for screening purposes, right? So they
Right.
weren't.
No, I understand.
It wasn't designed for anything that was cut before or whatever. It was.
So, there's where that's where I'm having trouble like wrapping my head around that because the arborvitae are being planted strictly for screening purposes, so they're a fence.
It pretty much is. I mean, it pretty much, it's a natural
Right.
version of a fence, right? So, but it
Exactly.
really won't,
If you leave that 30-foot restriction, deed restriction alone, I mean, there's going to be a lot of growth there, but you got to leave it alone. And it will grow. And it'll grow fast. In 3 or 4 years, there'll be a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah, but sometimes all the leaves are at the top of the tree, they're not at the bottom of the tree, and you can still get your headlights.
Yeah, the winter's going to be tough.
And the winters are even worse, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we're just looking for some headlight screening, because there's gonna be a lot of traffic there, sir.
No, it's a good idea, but as he pointed out, we've got issues with the grade. You know,
What is the grade uniform? Is it dip along the property line across the entire northerly boundary, or is it just that back corner where we're?
the back corner is certainly the worst.
Yeah.
You know, if you look in here, how tight those contours are right there, that's a fairly steep slope right there. So it is fairly low. The closer you get to Washington Street, the higher it gets in elevation. So up in here, you know, we're at 293 with the existing ground, and our road design right now shows like 294. So we're within 2 feet. So it's really that back corner where it really starts taking a dive, and it gets a little more difficult to try to provide that visual screening, I guess, on that back corner.
Well, and then unfortunately, a fence just isn't allowed in,
It is on the back part.
sure. Yep.
What is,
Here, you mean on that back, yeah.
sir?
That's where all the traffic's gonna be, in that corner where the cul-de-sac is, and that's where Mrs. Spear lives, and that's where our apartments are.
That's my question, sir, is what's the distance that a vehicle will travel as it comes off Washington Street into your development? If it goes straight to let's say that the driver is going to the last unit, how long is that trip for that driver?
Yep, so that is about 450 feet, 500 feet, as I remember, from Washington Street into that cul-de-sac.
Okay, and that will be traveling in
In an easterly direction.
straight at,
Straight at the back side of the Spears property. So the Spears, all these houses that we're talking about are up here, right? This is where Dan and Anita's place is, up in here, off the plan. And Miss Spear, your property's kind of up and end, closer to Lincoln Street than it is.
where's the Du Bois?
Du Bois is right there.
Okay.
So in their property, so there is kind of a pretty significant dip, is that correct, Dan? Between the properties, and then it kind of comes up to where your buildings are?
That's great, that's because you got, the people filled in that property that Java bought.
Right.
That's the only reason there's a dip there.
Right, yep. Yeah, I think we could all agree the natural terrain, before this bill went in, was kind of flowing in this direction, right? So it was kind of flowing in the southeasterly direction, which is what it's doing beyond the property over here on the
Their property is right, we're situated like this. and
But
right
the
beside
cul-de-sac is right in our back windows, right in her window.
What are you suggesting?
A fence. or
Okay,
something.
all right, then, Mr. Jabba? I mean, he's saying he's got to...
The problem is, you would have to put in a 15-foot fence. If we go and put a 6-foot fence, you won't even see the fence. The lights will go right over the top. It will not eliminate, it will stop people from crossing to their property. And if that's what we're trying to do, if we're trying to appease the board to get screening, or are we trying to appease the neighbors to stop people from crossing onto their lawn, but we can't do both. I mean,
Why not? Why can't you do both? What's stopping you?
It doesn't have to be a
You
six-foot
can have
fence.
a
We
small
have the
fence, and you
8-foot
can
fence.
still have your trees there.
But I don't think I don't think that's in the board will have to tell me.
I think the original question too, with the vehicles entering from Washington Street onto the property easterly is not going to be shining
Coming
into
down
their.
around the cul-de-sacs around the back.
I understand.
Coming out.
Yes, ma'am, I understand. I talk about the time frame Mr. Nail was asking about
Well,
from
Sooner
Washington.
or later.
Well, I like, my understanding, where the parking positions are going to be in front of the buildings, right? Or are they, so,
And in between the buildings, there's gonna be headlights right between the buildings, going right towards our buildings and our neighbors' buildings.
Folks, this is a massive project, and you've done a wonderful job, Mr. Engineer, in getting this thing together. It's well presented. And it seems like the only issue that we really have now is a very minor one in light of what you've developed here. It's one that I think that everybody can leave here tonight with saying, it's something we can live with. So that's what I'm looking at, Mr. Jamba. I can't vote, but I can still participate in discussion, so.
If the board tells me what they think is better, to be honest, it's more expensive to put the trees in. But we think it's a better solution because you could have a tree that could grow, that could be 20 feet tall. I would be glad if they're concerned, because we're going to keep, my son and I are going to keep this property longer than we're around. So we could sign something on it that we maintain, if a tree dies or if there's no maintenance on it, that we have to maintain these trees to get to that height. I mean,
We're also just talking about phase one tonight with the buildings on the southern side and the eastern side, not the buildings on the north side, which is the property that is being discussed right now. So I understand that there would be a future conversation for that, or what the board would like to see in those barriers. But their concerns right now, we're talking about the buildings on the southerly side.
Yeah, but the problem's still gonna be solved sooner or later.
I completely agree, and we're open to discussing it with you and doing what the board likes.
Dan, in your mind, what would put this thing to rest as,
If we could have some type of filter there for lights, and we'd still like to have a fence, because they're gonna have children over there, and they're gonna wander off Mrs. Spears' property, and they're gonna wander off onto my property, and we got old people there. We would just like to have a little bit of privacy, respectful privacy, that's all. We're not asking for a lot. We're not creating problems for them. We just don't want them creating problems for us.
Okay, is the issue lights, or is it that whoever may be an adult, maybe a senior, maybe a toddler going through and going onto your property? What's the issue?
It would be both.
Okay, all right.
Those two concerns, respectfully.
So I'd like to offer a suggestion that hopefully it kind of resolves everything, or at least gets us closer maybe. Let me go back to the site plan here. So, actually, I was taking the grading thing. So right now, we have on the design, people coming down to the east, I think we all agree, is not going to be flashing headlights to the north, only when they either turn in, once phase 2 gets built, and they turn into the parking areas here, between the buildings, like Dan had mentioned. The buildings will provide blocking for, parking in front of the building, but between the buildings, you're going to get some light traffic. So one of the things we could do, if the board is agreeable, is maybe put a fence up here, which really wouldn't affect anything for phase 2, because it's such a narrow area there, we couldn't put any buildings or anything there anyway. So if we put a fence just outside that 30-foot vegetative buffer here, and maybe it's a certain distance, whatever that distance is, we can spot their houses. I can load in images from Google Earth and get those houses, so we can have that fence be in that area, so that when people are coming around the cul-de-sac, they're hitting that 6-foot high fence a third of the way up. And then we're not getting into the big swale or anything. And what we might do is we might just not put arborvitae in that stretch. So what I'd be talking about, I think Dan and Anita's property is right there, right? So their buildings are, must be lawn area, their buildings are probably up in here somewhere. So what I'm talking about is maybe a fence or something that shields them from people going around that cul-de-sac, maybe starting something like here and then going to, as far as we can
on this property before it starts dropping back off again. That would provide them a fence, a 6-foot-high fence at the elevation of our development, which would mean the headlights would be hitting a third of the way up the fence. So that might provide some visual barrier. People can still go around the fence to trespass, so that's not really going to solve that problem, but.
Are you still gonna have the shrubbery?
So I think what I'm proposing is a fence here, and maybe we don't put the arborvitae here, or maybe we do, but having a fence here to block it kind of seems like superlative to have both of them. You know, have the fence and that. So if we put a fence here to block the headlights, I don't see the need for the arborvitae in where that fence is, from a visual barrier standpoint.
Yeah, but for such a large project, just a few dollars more, you could provide a little happiness for your neighbors.
I guess it's not my money, so I'm gonna, he said for a few dollars, to have a neighbor, happy neighbors, it'd be worth planting the arborvitae and.
Are all the neighbors chipping in?
Boyd?
Yes.
Even if you put the fence at the southerly edge of the 30-foot vegetative buffer,
Yes.
You'd still have to have the arborvitae along the property line to comply with the vegetative buffer restriction, wouldn't you? Like, the fence does not eliminate.
Doesn't your ordinance say a fence or arborvitae?
True, but your deed restriction says you have to have a vegetative buffer.
Oh, we wouldn't touch, I'm not saying we would get rid of the buffer, I'm just saying we wouldn't plant the arborvitae behind the fence. See what I mean?
I do, but I still think you need the arborvitae as part of the vegetative buffer to comply with your vegetative buffer restriction.
We don't need to do anything for vegetative buffer. The only reason we're planting the arborvitaes is for screening.
But you cut down the vegetative buffer.
No, we did not. We did not. We did not cut down, no, we didn't. Come see it. Come up and see
I was
it.
there the day they were cutting it, I was at one of my
Hey,
tenants,
you
and they were
know,
cutting.
John, the stumps are still there.
That's right.
The stumps are there, so they've been cut.
But when you go up, when anybody goes up, there's ribbons tied, and the ribbons are the 30-foot buffer. So where the ribbons is, everything downstream Kennedy Memorial Drive is not within the vegetated buffer. Vegetated buffer is from the ribbons down to your property. So if you want to show me where stumps are there, I would be glad to see them.
We'll look for it.
Listen, I don't want to fight, and I want to do what's right. But the arborvitaes are not for vegetated buffer. We'll do whatever you want, but the arborvitaes are for screening. I've been to these meetings before, and I've heard them talk about screening, how important it is to you guys, or to the board. So we want to put the screening, and that's why the arborvitaes are going there. And that's it. I don't want to confuse this with we're doing it because we cut down trees in this area.
Yeah. I realize you're not showing us the Phase 2 design tonight, and the last time you were here, there were proposed buildings on the north side, and those buildings were inside the 30-foot vegetative buffer, and the reason for the arborvitae was so that you would be able to comply with the vegetative buffer deed restriction and still be able to build your buildings in Phase 2.
Well, so I guess I'll correct one thing you said.
Okay.
So having those buildings in that buffer restriction area was an error on my part, okay? I was trying to fit everything, kind of a 10-pound bag of you-know-what in a 5-pound bag, right? And we were looking at options, and we happened to be able to come to the meeting. So I wish I had never showed that plan, because the plan that we propose now doesn't have any buildings within that restriction.
Okay.
But it's like once the cat's out there, it's out. But I can tell you right now, the Phase 2 concept, we haven't done any design, is completely outside of that 30-foot. We will not be putting buildings or anything in that 30-foot buffer area. Yeah, so that was on me, and that was just kind of a rush to get the plan here, and wish I hadn't done it, but I did. So.
So I want to kind of summarize real quick. We need screening. You need screening. And the best,
Someone over there that has her hand up, she likes it too.
yeah, so the screening, the best screening you're going to get, from what I've heard, is by having that fence put on the south side of the,
Around the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
But we still like to have the natural look of the vegetated area, you know?
yes, and I think you're going to have that over time. That 30-foot restriction, no one can build in, and I know it kind of got abused to date, but they're not going to be able to do that going forward, and then they have to come back to the planning board to do any kind of Phase 2 work, and we can, at that time, address any shortfalls that this might have. But putting that fence in seems like it will solve or it should solve some of the screening problems.
Now, could that possibly be an 8-foot fence?
Ann and I talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I think the city's had some issues with 8-foot-high fences. I don't,
Dan, would you care to comment on issues you've had with 8-foot-high?
I'm trying to forget. No, I'm not a fan of 8-foot fences, no.
because of instability, Dan, or?
Yeah, maintenance.
Yeah. I think, as I said, if we do what we're talking about with the grades, and if you put that fence in this cul-de-sac area right here, so when people are coming around the cul-de-sac, they're shining their light into that fence. This grade is about the same as that elevation right there, so they're literally gonna be 2 feet up on the bottom of the fence with the headlights, assuming headlights are 2 feet off the ground. So you'll have the best chance of success of headlights, not getting onto your property by carrying that fence up here in the cul-de-sac area, because you'll have 4 feet of fence that the headlights won't shine over. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Do we have both? Do we have both fence and the,
Well, on your property, unfortunately, with your property, there's such a drop in elevation. And that's the same thing. So this cul-de-sac up here is about 8 feet lower than 8 feet higher than your property here. So if you put a 6-foot fence in,
it's not
it's
gonna
going
help.
right over the
I
top
know,
of that.
that's what I'm thinking. So if you put the arborvitae up to protect us, and then put the fence to protect from the kids coming down.
Well, that's what I was saying is you put the fence here.
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm.
then
I'm
the
trying to-
arborvitae would still stay on your
Right, that's what
property.
I'm trying to clarify, to make sure that I'm hearing
Does
it
that
right.
mean,
'cause
does that
I
mean
have a
you're gonna
hearing
have the
difficulty
shrubs all the
when
way
I have-
around both sides?
I'm sorry, Dan.
Are you gonna have the shrubbery around both sides of both property lines?
Yeah,
Or
so,
are you eliminating some where the fence is?
well, my comment is, I don't see the need to have both. I guess that's at the discretion of the planning board, so.
It would be appropriate for a big project of this size. I don't think he's gonna go broke. Makes,
Both.
to have something that looks nice at the same time.
I don't necessarily disagree, but I'm just sitting here and I'm a little bit concerned about not this project, but others down the road of overburdening the developer with different requests, and that's my concern.
I do think our ordinance says one or the other. Yes, please.
I'm the last person that's probably going to keep us
that's
from our
okay.
beds and stuff like
It's
that.
Ann's fault for
so-
putting so much on the agenda.
And so, no problem. So Jim Douglas, our 10 Washington Street is my property. It's kitty corner to this planned development. And I'm going to change the subject. I'm not really concerned about light in our eyes, but what I have a couple questions for clarification, then I'll express my concern. Right now, you've got, it looks like 28 units. How many parking spots for those 28 units?
I think so. Keep talking now.
Yeah, it seemed like maybe 2 or less per unit when I was trying to count it up there. And in stage 2, how many more units are you planning on developing?
We haven't gotten to the final design.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the final.
This is, everything we've discussed with the board and finance and everything, we've been
Yeah.
very focused on getting this to the final.
Well, my question is kind of coming to what's the final development as to how many people might be going into this location and how many cars might be needed to take care of it.
Yeah, I do remember looking at the ordinance at the beginning, Jim, and
Yeah.
we
significantly exceeded the parking requirements for apartment units. I don't remember right offhand what that number was in the ordinance, but it was.
Well, there's a five-unit part, and I just look at it, and it looks like there's 8 to 10 parking spots, maybe for 5-unit, maybe close to the same for a 6-unit apartment, you know, so 1.5 to 2 parking spots per unit. So I'm a little, and then with future development, potentially at stage 2 of additional, maybe 3 or 4 more buildings, that's a lot of people trying to park in this space. My concern that I need to express is that we're just kitty corner. I rent that unit out to wonderful people. Is that parking space that's meant for that building may be utilized by other folks. There may not be enough parking spaces there to accommodate. That's a lot of units and not a ton of parking. As far as I can see. I'm not the pro. I know I'm not the one that develops what the ordinances are, but that would be my concern.
I think, as I remember, the ordinance is something like 1 or 2 or 3 per so many square feet, 1,000 square feet or something like that.
In the commercial A zone, it's 1 per unit, but in other zones, in residential zone, it's 2 per unit plus 1 for every 6.
Unless it's affordable housing, in which case.
Yeah, unless it's affordable housing.
Is this considered affordable housing?
I don't think so. No.
Okay.
Well,
So,
fair,
yeah.
fair.
So have I expressed my concern about that part, or what we could do is that if we start seeing, you know, folks saying, you know, they got 3 cars and they want to park, you know, it's really easy to park in our parking spot.
We set up an entire management plan for phase 1 and 2 for it that we'll be managing with our team that we've done in the past. And we're happy to work with you on making sure you have a direct contact with your tenant. I mean, we can't stop it on point every time, but we will work to make sure it's fixed. We'll work with you to make sure it's not taken advantage of, and we'll give you a direct contact so that your tenant, yourself, whoever it may be, can immediately reach out to somebody and take care of it.
Yeah, probably be the tenant.
I have no problem with that.
That would be on top of that, because on occasion, the people have parked in there, and it's like, most of the time, it's not a big deal, but if it's used a lot, you know, that could be a concern.
Understood. We will work with you on that to make sure it's not used or invest in the tow truck. So.
Okay, so,
No, I'm kidding.
no, I like the tow truck idea. So, Arbles the owner of Arbles is just down the street, so, so if you could, so you'd be able to intervene with the tenants?
Absolutely.
To be able to. Okay.
To be managed.
Okay, and that's part of your, can you make that part of your lease contract?
Absolutely.
That when somebody's lease is not.
Designated parking for.
Yeah, and that they're not to be utilizing parking off-site.
Yes, off-site at your location.
Yeah, okay,
Yes.
off-site at my location. You can make that part of your lease. There we go. Thank you.
I think I'm Crystal Shamus Douglas, co-partner with James at 12 Washington. I think I just hearing that the restaurant is going to go in and they will have to take a right, and now we have a lot of folks living in these apartments, also increasing the traffic there on Washington. So I just want to bring that up as a potential problem if people are now turning right from the restaurant and now turning left to get out of the apartments. That could cause a lot of issues. So that's my concern, that safety concern.
Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Scott? Yeah.
Sylvia.
Sandra Costrin, 11 Bond Court. I want to thank John for a much better development than what we saw the first time around. However, I do, and this is basically for the board. We have a restaurant, increased traffic on Kennedy Memorial Drive. We have a car wash coming up, increased traffic on Kennedy Memorial Drive. And I have great concerns now with the apartments, especially if they have Phase 2, increased traffic, Washington Street, and that intersection with KMD. And also the increased traffic with people going right out of the apartments and then down Lincoln Street.
Thank you.
Is the board on board with the vegetative, arborvitae?
I don't know
Is
what
that-
the board's on board with. You would have to make a motion.
I would propose that we have the plan amended to provide a fence south of the of the deeded 30-foot deeded
On
area.
the southerly edge of the deeded, okay.
And that fence be, it's late, I'm drawing a blank. I don't know
6-foot
how-
fence, is that?
Well,
that's
6-foot fence,
typical?
but how far down should it go?
What's like the mean radius of that circle? We're talking about 20 feet from the edge of the dumpster to the text block?
It's got to go,
So this is a 57-foot
Okay.
radius, so you're probably looking at, you would want to run a fence,
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
from, this fence will provide some barrier, but maybe we started here, and we probably run it to here, because by the time they've made that turn on the cul-de-sac, the headlights are pointing in that
Okay.
direction. So I would say if we got this area covered, maybe to this point would be a good demarcation point from there to there. Have
Okay.
a fence installed on the high side there, I think that would
Okay.
be more than reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, I'm guessing the plans are going to need to be updated, and we would sign the updated plans, correct?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't have to sign that plan. I think he's asking, will you bring us a plan that shows the fence?
Right.
I definitely can do that. I'm wondering if there's a way we could do it so John can move forward with his TIF things and everything else.
Right, you would have approval as
Yeah,
soon
we
as
can
they
get the-
sign the final.
Okay, and then we just
Right.
come back with an amended plan.
And then we'd
that
have to
you'd
go
sign.
into-
Or you
Okay.
can bring it to
Okay.
my office.
Yeah.
and
Right.
I could
I'm going
sign
to stop in and sign it.
Yeah, no problem with that. You're okay with that, John?
If we're adding the
Done that
fence,
many times.
is there still going to be arborvitae around the perimeter?
I think that's asking,
I'm not, you're saying talking about removing all of the arborvitae just to put this fence up, or?
Just that section.
Just that section,
section.
the arborvitae?
Yeah.
This is where we would remove.
Okay.
I mean, I personally don't have a problem with it, but I think it's going to look funny. To have this section missing, I think it's going to look weird, but
Just,
If we're all done talking, I say, let's put it in and go.
so we'll keep the arborvitae row, and then we'll add the fence on the high side, and hopefully that'll make everything copacetic, so.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, I have the findings and facts.
I'm going to make a motion to read by number only.
Great.
I just wanted to add, sorry. I'd have to note that I'd like to have the arborvitae as shown in the site plan, planted and maintained within 6 months of the start of site work.
Okay.
Okay?
You can add that to the,
A note
you can
on
add
the
it to the
plan.
notes at the end.
Yes,
Can we?
yes.
All right. Item 1, Boyd.
True,
Item 2.
true,
Item 3.
true,
Item 4.
true,
Item 5.
true,
Item 6.
true,
Item 7.
true,
Item 8.
true,
Item 9.
true.
Okay. I assume you have reviewed the fire sanitary conditions and the boring fill.
I have, yes, yes,
Okay,
I have,
thank you.
yes.
Any other restrictions, Tom?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to add that the arborvitae, as shown in the site plan, will be planted and maintained within 6 months of the start of site work.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Scott. Yes.
The conversation that we had in the agreement on the part of the lease, as far as no parking and the adjoining,
I don't think we can do that.
I don't think so because they've exceeded the amount of parking spaces that the ordinance requires them to have, right? I don't know, can we, I am really
I
tired.
also don't think that we can,
This is-
we don't have the authority to
Yeah.
dictate their
What they
lease
have in their
agreements.
lease.
Attorney would say I didn't have.
Yeah,
Okay, we have a vote.
okay. We have a second on the floor.
Yes.
Is there, all those in favor? Okay. And one abstention. And then, anything else that people would like to add to findings and facts? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
4-2.
And an abstention. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I say this with all the kindness in my heart. If we have another meeting that goes past 10:30, I will submit my letter of resignation. And I'm like actually not kidding. I have it drafted. Like.